The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, silencing the entire gala. Adrienne Vale, Manhattan's most feared investment CEO, stood frozen as her ex-boyfriend's laughter echoed through the ballroom. "You'll die alone in that corner office," he sneered loud enough for everyone to hear. "No amount of money can fix what's broken inside you." The humiliation burned hotter than any business defeat she'd ever suffered. But Adrienne Vale didn't break. She calculated. And within 48 hours, she would make a decision so shocking that Wall Street would question everything they thought they knew about power, pride, and the price of proving someone wrong. If you want to see how this impossible marriage changes everything, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The morning after the gala, Adrienne Vale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 47th floor, watching Manhattan wake beneath her. The city sprawled endlessly in every direction, millions of people pursuing their ambitions, their dreams, their desperate attempts at significance. From up here, they looked like ants. Predictable. Manageable. Unlike the chaos currently raging inside her chest, she pressed her palm against the cold glass, willing herself to feel nothing. That's what she'd trained herself to do for 15 years. Feel nothing, show nothing, win everything. But Marcus's words from last night had burrowed under her skin like shrapnel. "You'll die alone in that corner office. No amount of money can fix what's broken inside you." He'd said it at the annual Venture Capital Gala, in front of 300 of the most influential people in finance. Said it loud enough that conversation stopped mid-sentence. Loud enough that Amanda Chen from Goldman Sachs had actually gasped. Loud enough that Adrienne could still hear it echoing in her skull 12 hours later. The worst part? The pity in people's eyes afterward. Not shock, not outrage on her behalf. Pity. As if Marcus had simply stated an uncomfortable truth everyone already knew. Adrienne turned away from the window, her Louboutins clicking sharply against the Italian marble as she moved to her desk. The morning financial reports were already waiting, perfectly organized. Market analysis, quarterly projections, 3 acquisition opportunities that needed her decision by noon. This was her language. Numbers didn't lie. Spreadsheets didn't judge. Profit margins didn't care if you died alone. Her door opened without a knock. The only person in the building who had that privilege. "Your 8 o'clock is here," Noah Bennett said quietly, tablet in hand. "The Meridian Group. They're in conference room A." Adrienne glanced at her assistant. Noah was 32, though his permanently tired eyes made him look older. He wore the same rotation of 3 affordable suits, always pressed, never flashy. His dark hair was starting to show silver at the temples. Stress, probably. Or genetics. She'd never asked. In the 3 years Noah had worked for her, she'd learned exactly 3 personal facts about him. He had a 6-year-old daughter, he lived in Queens, and he never, ever complained. He was invisible in the way all truly excellent assistants were, anticipating needs before she voiced them, solving problems before they reached her desk, managing her schedule with the precision of a Swiss watch. She paid him well. He performed excellently. It was the perfect professional relationship. "Push it to 8:30, Adrienne said, not looking up from her screen. "And tell Davidson I want the updated numbers on the Portland deal before lunch." "Already done. They're in your inbox." Of course they were. Noah hesitated at the door. "Ms. Vale?" Something in his tone made her look up. He was holding his tablet awkwardly, like he wasn't sure whether to speak. Noah never hesitated. It was one of the things she appreciated about him. He understood efficiency, understood that her time was measured in 6-figure increments. "What is it?" "I saw the headlines this morning." He paused. "From last night, I wanted to say what Marcus Reynolds said was completely out of line, and not true." The unexpected kindness hit her like a slap. Adrienne felt her throat tighten, a physical reaction she immediately resented. She didn't need comfort. She needed strategy. "I don't pay you to have opinions about my personal life, Bennett." His expression didn't change. "No, ma'am. You don't." He left, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt louder than if he'd slammed it. Adrienne stared at the empty doorway, her jaw clenched. She didn't need his pity either, didn't need anyone's. What she needed was a plan. Marcus had humiliated her publicly. Fine, let him think he'd won. But Adrienne Vale had built a $300 million investment firm from nothing by understanding one fundamental truth. Perception was everything. In business, in life, in war, whoever controlled the narrative controlled the outcome. Marcus thought she was unlovable, broken, destined to die alone in her corner office. She'd prove him wrong in the most public, undeniable way possible. By noon, the idea had fully formed. By 3 o'clock, she'd done the risk analysis. By 5:15, when Noah knocked to ask if she needed anything else before he left to pick up his daughter, Adrienne looked up from her desk with an expression so calm it was almost dangerous. "Actually, Bennett, I do need something. Sit down." Noah blinked. In 3 years, she'd never asked him to sit. Their conversations happened standing and passing in the 60-second intervals between meetings. He sat carefully in one of the leather chairs across from her desk, tablet resting on his knee. Adrienne studied him. Really studied him for the first time in years. He had a good face, quiet, intelligent, the kind of face that didn't demand attention but earned trust. His hands were steady, his eyes were patient. He dressed modestly but appropriately. He never drank at office events, never gossiped, never played political games. He was, she realized, the perfect candidate. "I'm going to ask you something unconventional," Adrienne said, "and I need you to hear the entire proposition before you respond. Can you do that?" Noah's eyebrows drew together slightly. "Of course. I want to offer you a contract, 6 months, full benefits, including a college trust fund for your daughter that would cover 4 years at any university in the country. In exchange, you would fulfill certain public obligations." She watched his face carefully. Confusion, yes, but also attention. Noah was listening. "What kind of obligations?" "You would attend events with me, dinners, galas, investor meetings, anywhere my personal life intersects with business. You would present as my husband." The silence that followed was so complete Adrienne could hear the traffic 47 floors below. Noah didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at her like she'd started speaking another language. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Did you just ask me to fake marry you?" "Not fake. Legally binding, with a prenuptial agreement that protects both parties. But yes, the marriage would serve a specific strategic purpose for a defined period. At the end of 6 months, we file for a quiet, no-fault dissolution. You receive the agreed-upon compensation. Maya receives her college fund. We both move on." Noah set his tablet down very carefully on the edge of her desk. "Why?" His voice was quiet, but there was something sharp underneath it. "Why me?" Adrienne had anticipated this question. She'd prepared a logical answer. "Because you're professional, discreet, and already understand how I operate. Because you need financial security, and I need a solution to a public relations problem. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement." But looking at Noah's face, the genuine confusion there, the hint of something almost like hurt, she found herself giving him the truth instead. "Because Marcus said I'm incapable of a real relationship, that I'm too broken, too cold, too focused on business to ever let anyone in." She kept her voice level, factual. "The narrative is spreading. I saw it in the eyes of every person at that gala. Pity, judgment, questions about my ability to lead if I can't even maintain a personal life. That's insane. That's perception. And perception influences investor confidence, board decisions, market position. I've spent 15 years building this company. I won't let Marcus Reynolds' bitterness undermine that." Noah leaned back in his chair, processing. "So you want to prove him wrong by staging a marriage?" "I want to prove that I'm capable of partnership, that I can balance professional success with personal commitment, that the narrative about me is false." She paused. "And yes, I want Marcus to watch while I do it. That's revenge. That's strategy." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something she didn't expect. "What about Maya?" Adrienne frowned. "What about her?" "If I do this, and I'm not saying I am, but if I did, she would have to know the truth. I won't lie to my daughter about why I'm suddenly married to my boss. She's 6, but she's not stupid." "I'm not asking you to lie to her." "Then what are you asking?" Noah's voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. "Because this isn't just a business transaction for me, Ms. Vale. This is my daughter's life. Her understanding of relationships, of trust, of what marriage means. If I agree to this, I need to know you understand that. For the first time in the entire conversation, Adrienne felt something shift. She'd approached this as a negotiation, terms, compensation, mutual benefit. But Noah was reminding her that there was a 6-year-old child involved, a child who would watch her father marry a woman for money, then divorce her 6 months later. What would that teach her about love? "I understand," Adrienne said quietly, "and I respect that you're considering her first. If you agree, we'll handle it however you think is best for Maya. Total honesty if that's what you want. I'll follow your lead on that." Noah studied her for a long time. She could see him calculating, weighing options, running through scenarios the same way she did before every major decision. "I need to think about it," he said finally. "Of course. Take until Monday morning." "Monday?" Noah's eyes widened. "That's 4 days." "I'm aware. But if we're going to do this, we need to move quickly. The story from the gala is still fresh. The impact will be strongest if we act while people are still talking." Noah stood, picking up his tablet. He looked tired, more tired than usual. "You really think marrying your assistant is going to make people respect you more?" "No," Adrienne said honestly. "I think it's going to shock them, confuse them, make them question everything they assumed about me. And in that confusion, I'll rewrite the narrative on my terms. That's manipulative. That's survival." Noah walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. "What happens if it backfires? If people see through it and it makes everything worse?" "Then I'll handle it, alone. The contract will include a clause protecting you from any professional fallout. Whatever happens, your reputation and Maya's future stay secure." He nodded slowly. "I'll give you an answer Monday." After he left, Adrienne sat alone in her office as the Manhattan skyline darkened beyond her windows. She should have felt satisfied. The plan was in motion. The pieces were moving into place. Instead, she felt something uncomfortably close to doubt. What happens if it backfires? Noah's question echoed in the silence. Adrienne pushed it away and opened her laptop. Doubt was for people who couldn't afford to lose. She'd stopped being that person a long time ago. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering against Adrienne's windows. She'd been awake since 4, running through every possible version of Noah's answer. He would say yes. The money alone made it logical. A college fund for Maya? That changed everything for a single father living paycheck to paycheck. He'd be stupid to refuse, but Noah wasn't stupid, and he was protective of his daughter in a way that made simple financial logic less predictable. At 7:58, her office door opened. Noah stood there in one of his 3 suits, the navy one, looking like he hadn't slept much either. He was holding 2 coffees. "You remembered my order," Adrienne said, surprised. "You've been drinking the same thing for 3 years." He set 1 cup on her desk. "Black, 2 sugars, extra hot." "I don't take sugar." "You do on Mondays. Started about 8 months ago. I assumed it was stress-related." Adrienne stared at him. She hadn't even realized she'd changed her own coffee order. Noah sat down without being asked, a boldness that was new. "I talked to Maya this weekend. Explained that sometimes adults make agreements to help each other, like a partnership. Told her that you needed help with something, and I could help you, and in exchange you'd help make sure she could go to any college she wanted someday." "What did she say?" "She asked if that meant you were going to be her mom." Adrienne's stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, that we'd be married for a little while, but it was more like a work project than a family. That she shouldn't expect it to be permanent." He paused. "She asked if she could still call you Adrienne instead of Mom. I said of course." "And she was okay with that?" "She's 6. She doesn't fully understand it, but I promised her I wouldn't lie to her, and I won't." Noah met her eyes. "I also told her that if at any point this felt wrong or confusing, we'd stop, even if the 6 months aren't up. Her emotional safety is non-negotiable." "Agreed. I have other conditions too." Adrienne pulled out a legal pad. "I'm listening." "First, Maya's college fund gets established before any public announcement. I want it in writing, in her name, legally protected regardless of what happens with us." "Done." "Second, I keep my job and my salary. Whatever you pay me as part of this arrangement is separate. I won't be financially dependent on you." "Smart." Adrienne made a note. "Agreed." Third, we establish boundaries. I'll attend public events, play the supportive husband role, do whatever's needed for appearances. But my personal life, my apartment, my time with Maya, my weekends, stays mine. You don't get to manage that. I have no interest in managing your personal life, Bennett. And fourth, he paused. When this ends, we end it cleanly. No drama, no public blame, no dragging each other through the press. We issue a joint statement about mutual respect in different paths, and we move on professionally. Adrienne wrote it all down. Anything else? Yes. One more thing. Noah leaned forward. I want to know the real reason you're doing this, not the strategic explanation, not the narrative control, the actual reason. The question caught her off guard. Adrienne set down her pen. I told you. You told me what Marcus said. You told me about perception and investor confidence. But that's not enough to marry someone, even temporarily. So what's the real reason? Adrienne looked at him, really looked at him. Noah's eyes were patient but unyielding. He wasn't going to let her hide behind corporate speak. I'm tired, she said finally. I'm tired of being the woman everyone assumes is incapable of softness. I'm tired of walking into rooms and seeing people wonder what's wrong with me. I built this company by being harder, smarter, more ruthless than every man who told me I couldn't, and it worked. But somewhere along the way, I became the villain in my own story. She paused. I don't know if I can change that, but I'm tired of not trying. The silence stretched between them. Then Noah said quietly, Okay. I'll do it. On the conditions we discussed. Adrienne felt something loosen in her chest, relief maybe, or the strange vertigo of jumping off a cliff and hoping the parachute would open. Then we need to move fast. I want to announce this by the end of the week. Noah actually laughed. You want to plan a wedding in 4 days? I want to file paperwork and make a public statement. The ceremony is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant to Maya. If we're going to do this, we do it right. Small, simple, but real enough that she feels included. Otherwise, she'll just feel like an afterthought in her own father's life. He was right, and Adrienne hated that he was right. This was supposed to be clean, strategic, transactional. Not a real wedding with a child's feelings to consider. But she'd given Noah control over anything involving Maya. That was the deal. Fine. What do you suggest? City Hall. This Saturday. Just us, Maya, and a witness. 10-minute ceremony. Then we release a statement. I'll have my lawyer draw up the prenup today. I'll read it tonight. They stared at each other across the desk. Business partners. Co-conspirators, soon-to-be husband and wife. This is insane, Noah said. Completely. And we're really doing it. Unless you're getting cold feet, Mr. Bennett. He smiled, small but genuine. I stopped getting cold feet the moment I became a single father. Nothing scares me anymore. Adrienne smiled back. Good, because you're about to marry the most terrifying woman in Manhattan. People are going to lose their minds. Let them, Noah said. Maybe it's time people stopped underestimating both of us. The news broke on Thursday morning. Adrienne had planned to control the narrative by releasing a carefully worded statement through her publicist. But someone, probably Marcus's assistant, leaked it to the Financial Times first. Vail Capital CEO announces surprise marriage to executive assistant. Within an hour, it was everywhere. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. New York Post with the particularly tasteful headline, Boss Lady Marries the Help. Adrienne's phone exploded. Emails, texts. Her mother called 3 times, all of which Adrienne ignored. Her board chair left a voicemail that was professionally neutral but clearly concerned. Amanda Chen from Goldman sent a gif of someone screaming. By noon, #VailBennett was trending on Twitter. The reactions were mixed. This is either the smartest power move I've ever seen or the dumbest. Can't decide which. A CEO marrying her own employee? The power dynamic alone makes this deeply uncomfortable. Plot twist. Maybe she actually loves him, and everyone needs to calm down. Y'all remember when Marcus Reynolds humiliated her at that gala? This is definitely revenge. Respect. Imagine being so rich and lonely you have to pay someone to marry you. Sad. Noah appeared in her doorway at 12:15. I assume you've seen the internet. I've seen the internet. Maya's school called. Apparently, some of the parents are talking. One of them asked if it was true her dad was marrying a CEO for money. Adrienne felt ice slide down her spine. What did you tell them? I told them it was none of their business, but we need to prepare Maya. She's going to hear things. Kids at school, other parents, random people who recognize my name now. He looked exhausted. I knew this would be public, but I didn't think it would be this public. Do you want to back out? The question hung in the air between them. Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, No. We made an agreement. I'm not walking away because some strangers have opinions. He paused. But we need to talk about Saturday, the ceremony. What about it? My sister asked if she could come. Bring her husband. They want to support us, or me, at least. I told them it was complicated, but you want them there. Maya needs to see family there, needs to know this isn't some secret thing we're ashamed of. If we're doing this, we do it like it's real. Otherwise, what message does that send her? Adrienne nodded slowly. The wedding was growing, taking shape, becoming something more than just paperwork. Fine, invite them. I'll bring someone too. Keep it balanced. Who? She hadn't actually thought about that. Adrienne didn't have many close friends, business acquaintances, yes, but not people she'd invite to a wedding, even a fake one. I'll figure it out. That night, alone in her penthouse apartment, Adrienne stood at her window overlooking Central Park and called the one person who might actually show up. Her younger sister, Caroline, answered on the third ring. Let me guess, you're calling about the wedding. How did you know? Adrienne, it's been on the news all day. You married your assistant, the entire world knows. I'm marrying him on Saturday, and I need you there. Silence. You're serious? Completely. Why? Caroline's voice was softer now. Why are you doing this? Adrienne closed her eyes. Because I'm tired of being alone. It was the most honest thing she'd said to her sister in 5 years. Okay, Caroline said finally. I'll be there. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. Adrienne stood in front of her closet at 6 a.m. staring at her options. What did you wear to a strategic marriage that was supposed to look real but feel professional? What message did the outfit send? Too formal seemed cold. Too casual seemed dismissive. Too bridal seemed desperate. She finally chose a cream silk dress. Elegant, simple, expensive without being flashy. Pearl earrings. Her hair down for once, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Caroline arrived at 7:30 with coffee and surprising gentleness. You look beautiful, Addie. No one had called her Addie in years. Thank you for coming, Adrienne said quietly. Of course I came. You're my sister. Caroline paused. Even if I think this whole thing is completely insane. You're not the only one. They took a car service to City Hall. The building was already busy with people getting marriage licenses waiting for their turn in front of the judge. Adrienne spotted Noah immediately, standing near the entrance with Maya, who was wearing a yellow dress and clutching a small bouquet of flowers. Noah had worn a different suit, one she'd never seen before. Charcoal gray, perfectly fitted. He'd gotten a haircut. He looked handsome. Actually, genuinely handsome. Why had she never noticed that before? Maya saw her first. Adrienne, do you like my dress? Daddy said I could pick it myself. It's perfect, Adrienne said, and meant it. Noah's sister Rebecca approached with her husband Michael. They were polite but cautious, clearly trying to figure out what kind of person married their brother under these circumstances. Thank you for doing this, Rebecca said carefully. Noah told us about the arrangement, about Maya's college fund. That's generous. It's mutually beneficial, Adrienne replied, then regretted how cold that sounded. Caroline, thankfully, jumped in with small talk about the weather, the building, anything to fill the awkward silence. At 9 o'clock, they were called into the judge's chambers. The ceremony was exactly as simple as Noah had promised. The judge was a woman in her 60s who'd probably performed 1,000 of these. She asked the required questions, had them repeat the required words, and within 7 minutes, Adrienne was sliding a simple gold band onto Noah's finger while he did the same for her. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss. Adrienne's heart stopped. They hadn't discussed this part, hadn't choreographed it. And now Noah was looking at her with a question in his eyes. Do we do this for real or make it quick and professional? She leaned in, and so did he. The kiss was brief, chaste, appropriate for a city hall ceremony with a 6-year-old watching. But Adrienne felt it anyway. The warmth of his mouth, the steadiness of his hand on her waist, the way her pulse jumped unexpectedly. When they pulled back, Maya was clapping enthusiastically. Does this mean we get cake? She asked. Everyone laughed, and the tension broke. They took photos on the steps outside, just a few, for the sake of appearances. Maya insisted on being in every single one, standing between them like she was the one holding them together. Maybe she was. Afterward, they went to a small restaurant Noah had picked. Nothing fancy, just a neighborhood place with good pancakes where Maya could be a kid and no one would recognize them. Sitting in the booth, watching Noah cut Maya's pancakes while Caroline asked about schools, and Rebecca told stories about Noah's childhood, Adrienne had the strangest sensation of being outside her own life. This was someone else's wedding breakfast. Someone else's family. Not hers. She was just borrowing it for 6 months. But then Noah looked up and caught her eye, and he smiled. Small, genuine, maybe even a little relieved that they'd made it through the ceremony without disaster. And Adrienne smiled back. Maybe borrowing wasn't the worst thing in the world. The statement went out Monday morning. Adrienne Vale and Noah Bennett are pleased to announce their marriage. The ceremony was a private family event. They look forward to building their future together while continuing their professional partnership at Vale Capital. They ask for privacy during this time. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Investors called, demanding explanations. Business journalists wrote think pieces about power dynamics and workplace ethics. The feminist bloggers were split, half calling it exploitative, half calling it a brilliant subversion of traditional gender roles. Marcus Reynolds gave an interview to Business Insider calling the marriage a transparent publicity stunt by a woman who can't accept that no one wants her without a contract. Adrienne read it twice, waiting to feel the rage, the humiliation. Instead, she felt nothing. Because she had a ring on her finger now. She had evidence. She had a husband who'd stood beside her in front of a judge and said vows that were legally binding, regardless of the motivation behind them. Marcus could say whatever he wanted. The narrative had already changed. That afternoon, Adrienne had a board meeting. She walked in wearing her wedding ring, sat at the head of the table, and waited for someone to bring it up. Richard Davidson, the CFO, finally did. Congratulations are in order, I suppose. Thank you, Richard. It's certainly unexpected. The best decisions usually are. He didn't look convinced, but he dropped it. The meeting proceeded normally, quarterly reports, acquisition updates, risk analysis. But Adrienne noticed the difference. The way people's eyes kept flicking to her ring, the way conversations paused when she entered the break room, the way her authority felt slightly less solid, slightly more questioned. She'd anticipated this, prepared for it. What she hadn't prepared for was walking back to her office and finding Noah at his desk outside her door, working through emails like it was any other day. How was the board meeting? He asked without looking up. Productive. How was your morning? 3 reporters called asking for interviews. I declined all of them. Good. He finally looked up. This is weird, isn't it? Being married but still working together like nothing changed? It is weird, Adrienne admitted, but we'll adjust. Will we? Noah's voice was quiet. Because I keep thinking about Maya asking me this morning if you were going to live with us now, and I didn't know what to tell her. Adrienne sat on the edge of his desk, something she'd never done before. What did you say? I said that adults sometimes have complicated arrangements, and ours was one of them. That you had your home and we had ours, and that was okay. He paused. But she looked confused, and I realized that to a 6-year-old, married people live together. That's what marriage means. We discussed boundaries. Your apartment is yours. I know, and I'm not suggesting we change that. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm realizing this is going to be harder to explain to her than I thought. Adrienne felt that uncomfortable guilt again, the reminder that this arrangement affected a child who hadn't asked to be part of it. What do you need from me? She asked quietly. To make this easier for her? Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Maybe you could have dinner with us sometime, at our place. Let her see us interact like normal people, not just at public events. She needs to know you're a real person, not just a concept. The request was reasonable. It was also terrifying. Adrienne didn't do family dinners, didn't do casual domestic scenes. The idea of sitting in Noah's modest queen's apartment, eating whatever 6-year-olds ate for dinner, making small talk about school and cartoons, it was so far outside her comfort zone it felt like another planet. But she'd agreed to follow Noah's lead when it came to Maya. "Okay," she said. "When? This Friday? Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and whatever Maya's currently obsessed with. She's been asking questions about you. This might help." "What kind of questions?" "Whether you like animals, what your favorite color is, if you've ever been to Disney World." He smiled slightly. Typical kid stuff. Adrienne realized with sudden clarity that she had no idea how to talk to children, had never needed to learn. Her life had been conference rooms and negotiations and carefully managed professional relationships. But she'd signed up for this. "Friday works," she said. "Text me your address." As she walked into her office and closed the door, Adrienne felt that vertigo again, the sensation of having set something in motion that she could no longer fully control. She'd married Noah Bennett to rewrite a narrative, to prove Marcus wrong, to reclaim her image. But standing in that City Hall chamber, sliding that ring onto Noah's finger, kissing him in front of their families, it had felt real. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Friday evening arrived faster than Adrienne expected. She stood outside Noah's apartment building in Queens at 6:45, holding a bottle of wine she'd spent 20 minutes selecting, and a children's book about a girl who wanted to be an astronaut that the bookstore owner had promised was age-appropriate. The building was older, well-maintained, but modest. Nothing like her penthouse overlooking Central Park. Through the lobby window, she could see families coming and going, hear the distant sound of children laughing somewhere above. This was Noah's world, the world she'd never bothered to imagine during their 3 years of working together. She pressed the buzzer for apartment 4C. "Come on up," Noah's voice crackled through the speaker and the door clicked open. The elevator was small and slow. Adrienne checked her reflection in the scratched metal doors. She'd changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a soft cashmere sweater, casual but still expensive enough to feel like armor. Her hair was down again. She wasn't sure why she kept wearing it that way now. The 4th-floor hallway smelled like someone's dinner, garlic and tomato sauce. Apartment 4C was at the end, and before Adrienne could knock, the door flew open. Maya stood there in unicorn pajamas, her hair in 2 messy braids. "You came! Daddy said you might be too busy, but you came." "I promised I would," Adrienne said, surprised by how easily the words came. "Did you bring that?" Maya pointed at the book. "Is that for me?" "If you want it." Maya grabbed the book with both hands, her eyes going wide. "It's about space! Daddy, look, it's about space!" Noah appeared from what must have been the kitchen, wearing jeans and a faded MIT t-shirt Adrienne had never seen before. He looked younger somehow, more relaxed. "Let Ms. Vale come inside first, Maya." "It's Adrienne," both Adrienne and Maya said at the same time. They looked at each other and Maya giggled. The apartment was small but bright. One living room that doubled as a dining area, a kitchen barely big enough for one person, a hallway that probably led to 2 bedrooms. But it was clean and lived in, with Maya's drawings taped to the walls and books stacked on every available surface. A child's backpack sat by the door. Sneakers in various sizes lined the entryway. This was what a home looked like. Adrienne had forgotten. "Dinner's almost ready," Noah said, taking the wine bottle. "You didn't have to bring anything. I wasn't sure what the protocol was for fake marriage family dinners. Same as real ones, probably. Arrive, eat too much, try not to say anything awkward." He smiled. "You want something to drink?" "Water's fine." Maya had already flopped onto the couch with her new book, completely absorbed. Noah disappeared into the kitchen, and Adrienne stood awkwardly in the living room, not sure whether to sit or stand or offer to help. This was absurd. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. She'd stared down hostile board members and won. But standing in her husband's apartment, watching him cook spaghetti while his daughter read on the couch, she felt completely out of her depth. "You can sit down," Noah called from the kitchen. "You're making me nervous just standing there." Adrienne sat on the edge of the couch. Maya immediately scooted closer. "Do you like space?" Maya asked, not looking up from the book. I've never thought much about it. That's sad. Space is the best. There's planets and stars and black holes that eat everything and maybe aliens, but Daddy says we don't know for sure yet. Your dad's probably right. He's right about most things, except when he says I can't have ice cream before dinner. Then he's wrong. Adrienne found herself smiling. Does he say that a lot? Every single day. Maya turned a page. Are you going to live here now? Sarah at school said when people get married they live together, but you don't live here. There it was. The question Noah had warned her about. Adrienne chose her words carefully. Your dad and I have an unusual arrangement. I have to be close to my office during the week because I work very long hours, but that doesn't mean we're not married. So you're like part-time married. Something like that. Maya considered this. That's weird. I know. But okay, as long as you're not mean to Daddy. The fierce protectiveness in that small voice hit Adrienne harder than she expected. This 6-year-old was ready to defend her father against anyone, including the woman he'd just married. I'm not mean to him, Adrienne said quietly. I promise. Good, because Daddy's the best person in the whole world, and if you're mean to him, I'll be very upset. Noted. Noah emerged with plates of spaghetti. Maya, did you wash your hands? I was talking to Adrienne. Talking doesn't make your hands clean. Go. Maya huffed but obeyed, running down the hallway. Noah set the plates on the small dining table that was clearly meant for 2 people, not 3. Sorry about the interrogation, he said. She's been preparing questions all day. It's fine, she's protective of you. She has to be. It's been just us for a long time. Adrienne wanted to ask about Maya's mother, where she was, what had happened, but it felt too invasive, too personal for whatever this arrangement was. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Maya dominated the conversation with stories about school, a science project involving volcanoes, and her opinions on which superhero would win in various hypothetical fights. Noah listened with the patience of someone who'd had this exact conversation multiple times, occasionally redirecting when Maya's logic got too convoluted. Adrienne mostly observed, fascinated by the dynamic between them. The way Noah cut Maya's spaghetti without being asked. The way Maya automatically handed him her napkin when she spilled sauce. The shorthand of people who knew each other completely. She'd never had that with anyone. Adrienne? Maya was looking at her expectantly. Sorry, what? I asked if you can do a cartwheel. It's important. Noah covered a laugh with his napkin. I can't, actually, Adrienne admitted. I never learned. Maya's eyes went wide. Never? Not even when you were a kid? I wasn't very interested in gymnastics. I was more focused on school. That's sad. Everyone should know how to do a cartwheel. Maya slurped a piece of spaghetti. I could teach you sometime if you want. That's a generous offer. I'm a very good teacher. Daddy said so. After dinner, Maya insisted on showing Adrienne her room. It was tiny, but every inch of it screamed personality. Glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, a bookshelf overflowing with picture books, drawings tacked up everywhere. On the nightstand was a photo of Noah and Maya at what looked like a beach, both of them laughing at something off camera. That's from last summer, Maya said, following Adrienne's gaze. Daddy took me to Coney Island and we rode the cyclone and I almost threw up, but I didn't. That sounds fun. It was the best day ever. Maya climbed onto her bed. Do you have a best day ever? Adrienne thought about it. She'd had successful days. Days when deals closed, when companies she'd invested in went public, when her firm's valuation hit new records. But a best day ever? I'm not sure I do, she said honestly. Maya frowned. That's really sad. You should make one. How do I do that? Do something that makes you happy scared. That's what Daddy calls it, when you're nervous but excited at the same time. Maya hugged a stuffed elephant. Like when I went on the cyclone. I was happy scared. Happy scared. Adrienne turned the phrase over in her mind. I'll work on it, she said. When she returned to the living room, Noah was loading the dishwasher. Adrienne picked up a dish towel without thinking. You don't have to do that, Noah said. I'm capable of drying dishes, Bennett. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Noah said quietly, Thank you for coming tonight. It means a lot to Maya. She's been talking about it all week. She's a good kid. She is. She's also perceptive. She knows this situation is strange, but as long as she sees you treating us, with respect, she'll be okay. Adrienne set down a plate. Do you think I'm not? I think you're doing better than I expected. Noah turned off the water. I half expected you to show up in a suit and leave after 20 minutes. I considered it, he smiled, but you wore jeans and brought a book about astronauts instead. Maya's going to sleep with that book for the next month. It was just a book. No, Noah said. It was paying attention. It was caring what she's interested in. That's not nothing. They stood there in the tiny kitchen, close enough that Adrienne could smell the faint scent of his cologne, something understated and woody. She realized she'd never been this physically close to him outside of their wedding kiss. I should go, she said, suddenly aware of the intimacy of the moment. It's getting late. I'll walk you down. You don't have to. Maya's already in her pajamas, and I don't want you waiting alone for a car at night. I'll walk you down. He grabbed a jacket and called to Maya that he'd be right back. In the elevator, the silence felt different than it had on the way up, heavier with things unsaid. This is going to get more complicated, isn't it? Noah said as they reached the lobby. Probably. We have that investor summit next week. First major public appearance as a married couple. Adrienne had been trying not to think about it. The Metropolitan Investment Summit was one of the biggest events of the year. 3 days of panels, networking events, and formal dinners where every major player in finance would be watching them. I know. People are going to stare, make comments, question every interaction we have. Let them. Noah looked at her. You're really not nervous? I'm terrified, Adrienne admitted. But I've learned that fear and strategy aren't mutually exclusive. We'll be fine. Her car pulled up to the curb. Before she could reach for the door, Noah said, Adrienne? She turned. Tonight was nice. I know this whole thing is transactional for you, but... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Maya's already getting attached. I can see it. So if at any point this stops working for you, if you want to end it early, tell me. I'd rather deal with her disappointment now than have her get more invested in something that has an expiration date. The request was fair. It was also a reminder of what this was, a 6-month agreement with built-in termination clauses. Not a real marriage, not a real family. I won't disappear without warning, Adrienne said quietly. I promise. She got in the car and watched through the window as Noah walked back into his building. As they pulled away from the curb, Adrienne caught her reflection in the window. She was smiling. When had that started happening? The Metropolitan Investment Summit began on Tuesday morning with a keynote speech from the CEO of Blackstone. Adrienne sat in the front row with Noah beside her, acutely aware of every camera, every pair of eyes tracking their presence. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a steel gray suit that meant business, her wedding ring prominently displayed. Noah wore one of his better suits, the charcoal one from the wedding, and looked every bit the successful professional. But she could feel the whispers, see the glances. During the coffee break, it started. Adrienne, congratulations on the marriage, Thomas Chen from Sequoia Capital approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Very unexpected. Thank you, Thomas. And this must be the lucky groom. He extended a hand to Noah. Thomas Chen, I've worked with Adrienne for years. Never knew she had an assistant. The condescension was subtle but unmistakable. Noah shook his hand calmly. Noah Bennett, nice to meet you. So tell me, Noah, what's it like being married to one of the most powerful women in finance? Must be quite an adjustment from, what was it, scheduling meetings? Adrienne's jaw tightened, but Noah's expression didn't change. Actually, Noah said evenly, I'd say the adjustment is mostly on Adrienne's side. She had to get used to someone who challenges her decisions instead of just agreeing with everything she says. That must be uncomfortable when you're used to being the smartest person in every room. He said it with a slight smile, almost playful, but the message was clear. Don't underestimate me. Thomas blinked. Well, that's refreshingly honest. I find honesty tends to work better than posturing, Noah replied, especially in our line of work. Your line of work? Investment strategy, risk assessment, market analysis. I may have started as Adrienne's assistant, but I'd like to think I've picked up a few things in 3 years of working at Vail Capital. The challenge hung in the air. Thomas studied Noah with new interest, clearly recalculating his initial assessment. "I'm sure you have," he said finally, and excused himself. When he was gone, Adrienne turned to Noah. "That was bold." "That was necessary. These people need to know I'm not just arm candy or some gold digger who married you for money." Noah adjusted his tie. "If I'm going to be your husband, even temporarily, I'm going to act like I belong here." "You do belong here. Then let me prove it." The rest of the morning proceeded similarly. Person after person approached with thinly veiled curiosity or outright skepticism. Some were cruel, some were genuinely curious, a few were surprisingly supportive. But Noah handled every interaction with the same calm confidence. He didn't defer to Adrienne, didn't fade into the background. He stood beside her as an equal, contributing to conversations about market trends and portfolio strategy with insights that surprised even Adrienne. When had he learned so much? By lunch, the narrative was already shifting. Adrienne could feel it in the way people looked at Noah, less dismissively, more thoughtfully, as if they were reconsidering their initial judgments. The afternoon panel was titled Risk and Innovation in Modern Investment. Adrienne was one of 4 speakers, alongside CEOs from major firms. Noah sat in the audience, taking notes on his tablet like any other attendee. Halfway through the discussion, the moderator opened the floor for questions. A hand shot up from the middle of the room. "Marcus Reynolds." Adrienne's stomach dropped. "Marcus Reynolds? Reynolds Capital," he said, standing. "My question is for Ms. Vale. You've built your reputation on calculated risk assessment. Some might say your recent marriage represents the opposite, an impulsive decision that's raised questions about your judgment. How do you reconcile that with your professional philosophy?" The room went silent. Every camera swung toward Adrienne. This was it. The public challenge she'd been expecting since the wedding announcement. Adrienne took a slow breath, then smiled. "That's an interesting question, Marcus. I'd argue that my marriage represents exactly the kind of calculated risk I've always advocated for. I saw an opportunity for partnership with someone I trust and respect. I evaluated the risks, considered the potential rewards, and made a decision based on data rather than fear or conventional wisdom. Even though that decision surprised everyone who knows you, the best opportunities usually do surprise people. That's why most investors miss them." She paused. "But I'd also say that some things aren't purely transactional. Sometimes the smartest investment you can make is in the people who've proven their value when no one else was watching." She glanced at Noah. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Marcus wasn't finished. "And what about the inherent power imbalance? You're his boss, his employer. Some would argue that makes genuine partnership impossible." Before Adrienne could respond, someone else stood up. Noah. "If I could address that," he said calmly. The moderator nodded, clearly intrigued by the drama unfolding. "Mr. Reynolds raises a valid concern about power dynamics," Noah continued, "but I'd argue that power imbalances exist in every relationship, financial, social, professional. The question isn't whether they exist, but whether both parties are entering the partnership freely and with full understanding of the terms." He looked directly at Marcus. "I'm not a victim in this situation. I'm a grown man who made a choice based on my own assessment of what was best for my family. If people want to question Adrienne's judgment, that's their prerogative. But questioning my agency suggests you think I'm incapable of making my own decisions. And that's far more insulting than any power imbalance." The room was dead silent. Marcus's face had gone red. "I wasn't suggesting, weren't you?" Noah's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. "Because it seems like everyone's so focused on whether Adrienne made a mistake, they've forgotten to consider that maybe I knew exactly what I was doing, that maybe I saw something in this partnership worth pursuing, regardless of what other people thought." He sat down. The moderator cleared her throat. "Well, that was certainly illuminating. Shall we move on to our next question?" But Adrienne barely heard the rest of the panel. Her pulse was racing, her mind replaying Noah's words. Maybe I saw something in this partnership worth pursuing. Was he still talking about the contract? Or had something shifted without her noticing? After the panel ended, people swarmed them. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to Noah, ask his opinion on markets and strategy. He fielded questions with the same steady confidence, never overshadowed by Adrienne's presence, but never trying to outshine her either. They worked as a team, a real team. That evening, there was a formal dinner at the plaza. Adrienne wore a black gown, simple and elegant. Noah wore a tuxedo she'd insisted on buying him for exactly these occasions. When he'd protested, she'd reminded him that this was part of the arrangement, presenting a united, polished front. But seeing him now, standing in the hotel lobby waiting for her, she realized the tuxedo wasn't just about appearances. He looked genuinely handsome, confident, like he belonged in these spaces not because of her, but because of himself. "You clean up nice, Bennett," she said, approaching. "So do you, Miss Vale." He offered his arm. "Ready for round two?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, elaborate floral arrangements, tables set for 800 guests. Their assigned seats were near the front, surrounded by the exact people Adrienne needed to impress. Dinner conversation flowed easily. Noah surprised her again by discussing semiconductor markets with a venture capitalist from Kleiner Perkins, offering insights about supply chain vulnerabilities that made the man pull out his phone to take notes. "Where did you learn about semiconductor supply chains?" Adrienne whispered during a pause in the conversation. "I read," Noah whispered back. "And I've been sitting outside your office listening to your phone calls for 3 years. You pick things up." "You've been eavesdropping?" "I prefer to call it professional development." She kicked him lightly under the table. He kicked her back, and they both hid smiles behind their wine glasses. When had this become fun? After dinner, there was dancing. Adrienne tried to excuse herself. She hated these portions of events, the forced intimacy of slow songs and small talk. But Noah caught her hand. "One dance," he said. "People expect it." He was right. They were being watched. They moved to the floor, and Noah's hand settled at her waist, firm and steady. Adrienne placed her hand on his shoulder, hyper-aware of every point of contact between them. "You were amazing today," she said quietly as they swayed to the music. "The way you handled Marcus, the panel, all of it. I underestimated you." "Most people do." "I'm serious, Noah. You could do more than just assist me. You could lead deals yourself, manage portfolios. You have the instincts for it." He was quiet for a moment. "Is that an offer?" "It's an observation, but yes, when this arrangement ends, I want you to consider staying at Vale Capital in a different capacity. Partner, maybe, or leading your own division. Even after we divorce?" The word felt harsh in the soft lighting of the ballroom. "Especially after, because you've proven you're not just riding my coattails. You're genuinely good at this." Noah's hand tightened slightly at her waist. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When I agreed to this marriage, it was purely transactional. Maya's college fund, financial security, a chance to change our lives. I thought I could keep it separate, the contract versus real life. But being here with you, watching you work, seeing how brilliant you are when you're not hiding behind walls." He paused. "It's getting harder to remember this is temporary." Adrienne's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could feel it. "Noah, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I'm not trying to change the terms. I just thought you should know. This is starting to feel real to me, even though I know it isn't." Before she could respond, someone tapped Noah's shoulder. "Mind if I cut in?" It was David Morrison from Benchmark Capital, one of the most influential investors in the room. Noah stepped back smoothly. "Of course." He disappeared into the crowd, and Adrienne was left dancing with David, making polite conversation while her mind raced. It's starting to feel real to me. What did that mean? What was she supposed to do with that information? The rest of the evening blurred. More conversations, more networking, more performance. When she finally made it back to her hotel room at midnight, Adrienne kicked off her heels and collapsed on the bed, still in her gown. Her phone buzzed, a text from Noah. "Maya wanted me to tell you she finished the space book. She's demanding I thank you properly on her behalf. So thank you. For the book, and for tonight. You were incredible." Adrienne stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "So were you. Get some sleep. We have a breakfast panel at 7 a.m. Brutal. See you there." She set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, replaying the evening. Noah's words during the panel. The way he'd defended both of them without hesitation. The feeling of dancing with him, of his hand at her waist, of his quiet confession that this was becoming real. And the terrifying realization that for her, it was becoming real too. The final day of the summit was a breakfast panel on emerging markets. Adrienne was exhausted, running on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee. Noah looked equally tired but still sharp in his questions during the Q&A. Afterward, as they were gathering their things, a woman approached. Mid-50s, elegant, carrying herself with the kind of confidence that came from years of success. "Adrienne Vale," she said, extending her hand. "Jennifer Walsh, Walsh Ventures. We met briefly in 2019. "I remember. Good to see you again, Jennifer. I wanted to introduce myself to your husband as well." She turned to Noah. "That was quite a performance yesterday. The way you handled Marcus Reynolds, that took guts." "Thank you," Noah said carefully. "I mean it. I've watched Marcus bully people in this industry for 20 years. It was refreshing to see someone stand up to him without resorting to his tactics." She pulled out a business card. "I'm looking for a new partner to head our East Coast operations. Someone with fresh perspective but solid instincts. Would you be interested in discussing it?" Noah took the card, clearly stunned. Yes, absolutely. Excellent. Call my office next week. We'll set something up." She nodded to Adrienne. "You've married a smart man, Ms. Vale. Don't let him stay in your shadow too long. He's capable of more." She walked away, leaving them both standing there. "Did that just happen?" Noah asked. "That just happened. Jennifer Walsh just offered me a job interview." "She did." He looked at the business card, then at Adrienne. "Because of you, because being your husband gave me visibility." "No," Adrienne said firmly, "because you were brilliant. Because you proved yourself in front of the exact people who needed to see it. I gave you the stage, but you performed the show." Noah's expression softened. "Thank you for bringing me here, for giving me this chance. Thank you for not making me look like an idiot for marrying you." They smiled at each other, and for a moment the exhaustion and stress of the past 3 days faded into something simpler. Partnership. Real partnership. On the train ride back to Manhattan, Noah fell asleep against the window. Adrienne worked on her laptop, occasionally glancing at him. His face was relaxed in sleep, younger, vulnerable. She thought about Maya's question, "Do you have a best day ever?" Maybe she was starting to. When they arrived at Penn Station, Noah woke up disoriented. "Sorry, didn't mean to crash." "You needed it." They gathered their bags and headed for the exit. Outside, the city was gray and cold, the November wind cutting through their coats. "I should get back to Queens," Noah said. "Pick up Maya from Rebecca's." "Of course." They stood there on the sidewalk, people rushing past them in every direction. After 3 days of being constantly together, constantly performing, the sudden separation felt strange. "Noah?" Adrienne said before he could leave. "Yeah?" "What you said last night, about this starting to feel real." She took a breath. "I need you to know that I feel it too, and I don't know what to do about that." His eyes widened slightly. "You do?" "I do, which terrifies me because this was supposed to be simple, transactional, 6 months and done. But it's not." "No, it's not." They looked at each other, the weight of the admission hanging between them. "So what do we do?" Noah asked quietly. "I don't know, but I think we need to be honest about it. With each other, at least." He nodded slowly. "Okay, honest. I can do honest." "Good." A taxi honked. The moment broke. "I'll see you Monday?" Noah said. "Monday." He started to walk away, then turned back. "Adrienne?" "Yes?" "For what it's worth, I'm glad you asked me. Even if it's complicated. Even if I have no idea how this ends." He smiled slightly. "I'm glad it's you." Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Adrienne stood there for a long moment, watching the space where he'd been. She was glad too, and that scared her more than any business deal ever had. The weeks that followed the summit changed everything in ways Adrienne hadn't anticipated. Noah's performance had shifted how people saw him, which meant it shifted how they saw her. Suddenly, investors were asking for his input on deals. Business journalists wanted interviews with both of them. The narrative around their marriage evolved from scandal to intrigue to something almost resembling respect. But with that shift came complications neither of them had prepared for. It started small. Noah attending more high-level meetings because clients specifically requested him. Adrienne finding herself explaining investment strategies to him late at night because he genuinely wanted to understand the nuances. their professional relationship deepening in ways that blurred the careful boundaries they'd established. And then there were the moments that had nothing to do with business at all. Like the Wednesday afternoon 3 weeks after the summit when Adrian walked past Noah's desk and noticed he was on the phone, his voice tight with stress. I understand that, but I can't leave work right now. Can someone else pick her up? Pause. Rebecca's out of town, I know. He ran a hand through his hair. Okay, I'll figure something out. He hung up and stared at his computer screen like it might offer solutions. Problem? Adrian asked. Noah looked up, clearly having forgotten she was there. Maya's school, she's sick. They need someone to pick her up within the hour, or they'll have to call emergency services. So go get her. I have the Phillips meeting at 3. They flew in from Chicago specifically for this. If I cancel, I'll take the Phillips meeting. Noah blinked. You have the board presentation at 3:30. I'll move it to 5. Go get your daughter, Bennett. I can handle Phillips. Are you sure? They're expecting both of us. We've been working on this pitch for 2 weeks, and I know it as well as you do. I'll tell them you had a family emergency. They'll understand. She paused. Maya needs you. That takes priority. Something shifted in Noah's expression, gratitude mixed with something deeper. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just go. He grabbed his coat and was halfway to the elevator before he turned back. Adrienne? Yes? If you want to stop by after work, check on her. She'd probably like that. She keeps asking when she'll see you again. The invitation caught her off guard. I don't want to impose if she's not feeling well. You're her stepmother, technically. I think that gives you imposing privileges. Stepmother. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications they both felt but neither addressed. I'll stop by around 7, Adrian said finally. The Phillips meeting went smoothly. Adrian presented their investment strategy with the precision and confidence she'd honed over 15 years. The client signed the contract by 4 o'clock, and she made it through the board presentation without any of the directors noticing that half the team was missing. But by 6:30, sitting alone in her office with the city lights spreading out beneath her window, Adrian realized she was nervous about seeing Maya. What if the girl was really sick? What if she needed something Adrian didn't know how to provide? What did you even bring to a sick child? She stopped at a pharmacy on the way to Queens and stood in the children's medicine aisle, feeling completely lost until a pharmacist took pity on her and helped her select appropriate fever reducers, a thermometer, and some kind of electrolyte drink that apparently children liked. When she arrived at the apartment, Noah opened the door looking exhausted. His tie was gone, sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled. She's okay, he said immediately. Just a stomach bug. She's been sleeping most of the afternoon. I brought supplies. Adrian held up the pharmacy bag. I wasn't sure what she'd need. Noah's expression softened. You didn't have to do that. I know. He let her in. The apartment was dimmer than last time, quieter. Maya was curled up on the couch under a blanket, watching a cartoon with the volume low. When she saw Adrian, her face brightened. You came! Her voice was hoarse but genuinely happy. I heard you weren't feeling well. Adrian set down the bag and sat carefully on the edge of the couch. How are you doing? My tummy hurts, and I threw up twice, and Daddy said I can't have ice cream for 3 whole days. Maya said this last part like it was the greatest tragedy imaginable. That does sound terrible. The worst. But he made me soup and let me watch cartoons all afternoon, so maybe it's not completely terrible. Adrian smiled. Your dad takes good care of you. He's the best. Maya shifted under the blanket. Are you staying for dinner? Daddy's making grilled cheese. I don't want to intrude. Please? Maya's eyes were wide and earnest. It's boring being sick. And you could tell me about your work. Daddy says you're in charge of millions and millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions, actually. That's so many millions I can't even count that high. Maya yawned. Do you ever get scared you'll lose all the money? The question was so honest, so childlike, that Adrienne found herself answering truthfully. Sometimes, but I've learned that being scared doesn't mean you can't do something. It just means you have to be extra careful and smart about how you do it. Like how I'm scared of the dark, but I still sleep in my own room? Exactly like that. Maya seemed satisfied with this answer. She snuggled deeper into the blanket, her eyes already drifting closed again. Noah emerged from the kitchen with a sandwich cut into triangles. Maya, you need to eat something. Not hungry. I know, but you need to try. Just a few bites. The negotiation that followed was gentle but firm. Noah coaxed Maya into eating half the sandwich while Adrienne watched, fascinated by the patience required for this kind of parenting. Every bite was a small victory. Every swallow was praised. This was a different kind of negotiation than boardrooms and contracts. The stakes were lower but somehow felt more important. After Maya fell asleep on the couch, Noah carried her to her bedroom. Adrienne stood awkwardly in the living room, not sure if she should leave or stay. When Noah returned, he looked even more tired than before. "How did the Phillips meeting go?" he asked. "They signed. Everything went exactly as we planned." "Of course it did. You're brilliant at this." "So are you. They asked about you specifically, wanted to know when you'd be joining their next board meeting." Noah sank into the armchair. "This is getting weird, isn't it? People treating me like I'm actually important instead of just your assistant." "You are important. You were always important. People are just finally noticing." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Jennifer Walsh called me yesterday, from the summit. She wants me to interview for that partner position." Adrienne's stomach tightened. "That's good. That's what you wanted." "Is it? Isn't it? A chance to lead your own division, make real money, build something that's yours instead of always being in my shadow." "I'm not in your shadow, Adrienne. I'm beside you. There's a difference." The words hit harder than they should have. Adrienne sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "What are we doing, Noah? Really? Because this started as a business arrangement, and now you're getting job offers because of me, and I'm buying children's medicine at pharmacies, and Maya's calling me her stepmother, and none of this feels transactional anymore." "No," Noah agreed quietly. "It doesn't." "So what do we do about it?" "I don't know, but I think we need to figure it out before one of us gets hurt." "You mean before Maya gets hurt?" "I mean before any of us gets hurt." He met her eyes. "Because I'm in dangerous territory here, Adrienne. I'm starting to forget this has an expiration date, and that's a problem." Before Adrienne could respond, her phone buzzed. Then again. And again. She pulled it out and her blood went cold. 23 missed calls, 15 texts, all from her publicist, her lawyer, and several board members. "What's wrong?" Noah asked, seeing her face. Adrienne opened the first article link her publicist had sent. The headline made her stomach drop. "Veils calculated marriage. Leaked emails reveal prenup details and contract terms." Below it was a photo of the actual prenuptial agreement, their signatures, the clause about the 6-month term, the financial arrangements, everything. "Someone leaked our prenup to the press," she said, her voice hollow. Noah was beside her in an instant, reading over her shoulder. She watched his face go pale as he saw the details spelled out in black and white for the entire world to read. The article was brutal. It painted Adrienne as cold and calculating, Noah as a gold digger, and their entire marriage as an elaborate fraud designed to manipulate public opinion. The comments section was even worse. Her phone rang. Her publicist. "Tell me you're seeing this," Jennifer's voice was tight with stress. "I'm seeing it. Who had access to that prenup? Your lawyer? Noah's lawyer? Who else?" "I don't know. Maybe someone at the courthouse when we filed it." "Well, someone sold it to Business Insider for what I'm guessing was a significant amount of money. The story's everywhere. Every major outlet is picking it up. We need to get ahead of this now." "How?" "I don't know yet. I need to think. But Adrienne, this is bad. The board is going to lose their minds. Investors are going to question your judgment. And your husband—" She paused. "How's he handling this?" Adrienne looked at Noah. He was standing by the window now, staring out at the street below, his shoulders rigid. "I'll call you back," Adrienne said, and hung up. "Noah, they published the dollar amounts," he said quietly. "The exact terms of Maya's college fund. What you're paying me monthly. All of it." "I'm sorry, I don't know how this happened. Everyone's going to think I married you for money. Let them think it. We know the truth." Noah turned to face her. "Do we? Because right now, reading those terms in black and white, even I'm questioning my motivations." "Don't do that. You agreed to this arrangement for Maya's future. There's nothing shameful about that." "Isn't there?" His voice was sharp now, anger finally breaking through. Because according to that article, I'm an opportunistic employee who seduced his boss into a fake marriage for financial gain. And you're a desperate CEO who had to buy herself a husband because no one would marry you otherwise. That's not what happened. No? Then what did happen, Adrienne? Because from the outside, that's exactly what this looks like. The words stung because they were partially true. She had offered him money. She had proposed a transactional marriage. The fact that it had evolved into something more complicated didn't change the foundation it was built on. I was trying to solve a problem, Adrienne said quietly. Marcus humiliated me, and I wanted to prove him wrong. You needed financial security for Maya. It was supposed to be mutually beneficial. It was supposed to be simple, Noah corrected. But it stopped being simple weeks ago, and we both know it. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me this meant something to you beyond strategy and reputation management. I want you to tell me that somewhere in the past 2 months, you stopped seeing me as your assistant and started seeing me as your husband. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in Adrienne's chest. She wanted to say yes, wanted to tell him that every dinner with Maya, every conversation in the office, every moment at the summit had shifted how she saw him, that she'd started looking forward to his presence in ways that had nothing to do with business. But the words stuck in her throat, because saying them out loud made them real, made this real. And real meant she could lose it. Her silence was answer enough. Noah nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Noah, that's not fair. What's not fair is asking me to keep pretending this is just a contract when we both know it stopped being that a long time ago. What's not fair is Maya getting attached to you, asking when you're coming over, calling you her stepmother, while you're still counting down the days until our 6 months are up. I never asked her to call me that. But you didn't stop her either. You showed up with books and medicine and sat with her when she was sick. You acted like family, Adrienne, and now she thinks you are. I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been being honest from the start. The right thing would have been keeping this strictly professional like we agreed. He grabbed his keys from the counter. I need to go for a walk, clear my head. It's almost midnight. I know what time it is. Noah, please, we need to talk about how to handle this. The press, the board, our response. Our response? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. There is no our response, Adrienne. There's your reputation and your company and your carefully managed public image. That's what this has always been about. I was just stupid enough to forget that. That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me honestly. If this article hadn't leaked, if everything was still going according to plan, would you have wanted to extend our arrangement past 6 months? Would you have considered making this real? Adrienne opened her mouth, then closed it, because she didn't know the answer. She hadn't let herself think that far ahead, hadn't allowed herself to imagine a future where this arrangement evolved into something permanent. Noah saw the hesitation and something in his expression shuddered closed. That's what I thought, he said again. I'll see you Monday at the office. We'll figure out a professional response to the leak, but I think we need to start being honest about what this actually is. Which is what? A mistake, Noah said quietly. A well-intentioned mistake that got out of hand, and the sooner we admit that and end this, the less damage we'll do. He left without another word, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. Adrienne stood alone in his apartment, surrounded by evidence of the life he'd built with his daughter. The drawings on the walls, the photos on the shelves, the blanket Maya had been wrapped in, still warm on the couch. She'd entered this space thinking she could borrow it for 6 months, thinking she could play it family without consequences. But Noah was right. It had stopped being simple. It had stopped being fake. And now she was going to lose it all because she was too afraid to admit she wanted it to be real. The next morning, Adrienne's office was besieged. Her phone rang constantly. Email flooded her inbox. 3 board members showed up demanding an emergency meeting. The press camped outside Vail Capital's building, cameras ready to catch any statement or reaction. Noah arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, professionally dressed, his expression carefully neutral. He set her coffee on her desk without a word and went back to his station outside her office. No good morning, no small talk, just cold professionalism. This was what she'd asked for, wasn't it? Boundaries, professional distance, a clear separation between the contract and real life. So why did it feel like she was suffocating? The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 10. Adrienne spent the intervening 2 hours preparing her defense, crafting explanations, building arguments for why her marriage, fake or not, didn't affect her ability to lead the company. At 9:45, Noah knocked on her door. "They're ready for you in the conference room." "Thank you." He started to leave, then paused. "Adrienne?" "Yes?" "Whatever happens in there, whatever they say about me or about us, I want you to know I don't regret agreeing to this. Even now. Even with all of this." He gestured vaguely at the chaos outside. "Maya's college fund is secure. That was the point. That was what mattered. So don't let them make you feel guilty for offering that to us." The kindness in his words, even after last night, nearly broke her. "Noah, about what I said, we can talk about it later. Right now, you need to focus on saving your company." He was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. The board meeting was exactly as brutal as Adrienne had anticipated. 7 people around the table, all of them looking at her like she'd committed corporate treason. Richard Davidson started. "Adrienne, I'm going to be blunt. This leaked prenup makes the company look ridiculous. It makes you look desperate, and our shareholders are asking legitimate questions about your judgment. My personal life has no bearing on my professional performance. It does when you marry an employee and structure it like a business transaction," Margaret Chen interrupted. "The optics are terrible, the power dynamics are questionable at best, and now that everyone knows the specific terms, you've opened us up to lawsuits from other employees claiming favoritism or inappropriate relationships. Noah Bennett is qualified for every opportunity he's been given. Noah Bennett was your assistant 6 months ago," Richard said sharply, "and now he's your husband, attending high-level meetings, getting job offers from competitors, all while being paid a substantial monthly fee as outlined in that prenup. You can't possibly think that looks legitimate." Adrienne felt her control slipping, felt the familiar walls rising up. "What exactly are you suggesting, Richard?" "I'm suggesting you need to make a choice. Either end this marriage immediately and distance yourself from Bennett professionally, or step down as CEO until this situation resolves itself." The room went silent. "You're asking me to resign," Adrienne said slowly. "I'm asking you to prioritize the company you built over a relationship that's causing significant reputational damage." Margaret leaned forward. "Adrienne, we respect everything you've accomplished. You've built Vale Capital into one of the most successful firms in the industry. But this situation is untenable. The press is having a field day. Marcus Reynolds is giving interviews calling you a fraud. Our investors are spooked. Then we issue a statement. We explain—" "Explain what?" Richard demanded. "That you paid your assistant to marry you for 6 months to prove your ex-boyfriend wrong? That doesn't make it better, Adrienne. It makes it worse." She looked around the table. Every face reflected the same sentiment. They wanted her to choose Noah or the company she'd spent 15 years building. "I need 24 hours, Adrienne said finally. "For what?" "To figure out the right approach, to consult with legal and PR, to make a decision that protects everyone involved." She met Richard's eyes. 24 hours. That's all I'm asking." The board exchanged glances. Finally, Margaret nodded. 24 hours. But Adrienne, this needs to be resolved quickly and cleanly. The longer it drags out, the worse it gets. Adrienne left the conference room feeling like she'd aged 10 years. Noah was at his desk, and she could tell from his posture that he'd been waiting to hear how it went. "They want me to end the marriage," she said quietly. "Or step down as CEO." Noah's jaw tightened. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." He stood, gathering his things. "You're going to choose the company. That's what you've always chosen. That's what you'll always choose." "That's not fair." "It's completely fair. Your company is your life's work. I'm a 6-month contract that got messy. The choice is obvious." "It's not that simple." "It is that simple, Adrienne. It always has been." He grabbed his coat. "I'm taking the rest of the day. Personal time. I'll submit my resignation tomorrow." "Your resignation?" "Noah, you don't have to Yes, I do. Because as long as I am your employee and your husband, this doesn't end. The board is right about that much. So I'll resign, we'll file for divorce, and we'll both move on with our lives." "Just like that? You're just going to walk away?" Noah looked at her with an expression so sad it physically hurt. "I'm not the one walking away, Adrienne. I told you last night what I wanted. I asked you if this meant something beyond strategy and contracts. You didn't answer. That told me everything I needed to know. I was scared. I know, but I can't keep waiting for you to stop being scared. Maya can't keep waiting. We deserve more than being someone's strategic partnership. He walked to the elevator, and Adrienne found herself following him. Noah, please, don't do this. We can figure something out. There's nothing to figure out. The elevator arrived and he stepped inside. You wanted a 6-month marriage to fix your reputation. We're 4 months in. I'll honor the contract. But after that, I'm done pretending this could ever be something more. The doors started to close. Adrienne reached out to stop them, but Noah shook his head. Let me go, he said quietly. It's what you're good at. The doors closed, and Adrienne was left standing alone in the hallway, her chest tight, her hands shaking. He was right. She was good at letting people go. She'd built a career on cutting losses, on making hard decisions, on choosing success over sentiment. But standing there in the empty hallway, watching the elevator numbers descend, Adrienne realized with sudden, devastating clarity that she didn't want to let Noah go. She didn't want to lose the dinners with Maya, the easy partnership at work, the feeling of being part of something beyond quarterly reports and board meetings. She didn't want to lose him, and that terrified her more than any business failure ever could, because wanting something meant risking it, meant acknowledging she needed another person, meant admitting that all the success and money and power in the world didn't fill the hollow space that Noah and Maya had somehow occupied in the span of 4 months. Her phone buzzed. A text from her publicist with 3 proposed statements for the press. Adrienne stared at them, then at the elevator doors, then at the phone again. She had 24 hours to make a decision. 24 hours to choose between the company she'd built and the family she'd accidentally found. 24 hours to decide if she was brave enough to fight for something that couldn't be controlled or calculated or managed. For the first time in her professional life, Adrienne Vale had absolutely no idea what to do. Adrienne didn't go back to her office. Instead, she found herself walking through Manhattan with no destination in mind, her phone buzzing relentlessly in her pocket as she ignored call after call. The November wind cut through her coat, but she barely felt it. Her mind was replaying the same scene over and over. Noah's face as the elevator doors closed, the finality in his voice when he told her to let him go. She ended up at a small cafe in the West Village, the kind of place she never went to because it didn't serve meetings or impress clients. Just coffee and quiet corners where people read books or stared at laptops. She ordered something she didn't want and sat by the window, watching strangers rush past with their own problems, their own lives. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Caroline. Adrienne answered. Not now. Yes, now, her sister said firmly. I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Where are you? I don't know. Some cafe. Stay there. I'm coming to you. Caroline, I don't need... But her sister had already hung up. 20 minutes later, Caroline slid into the seat across from her, still in her work clothes, slightly out of breath from whatever she'd dropped to get here. Okay, Caroline said. Talk. There's nothing to talk about. The entire financial world is discussing your marriage contract. Your board wants you to resign or divorce, and you're sitting in a random cafe in the middle of the day instead of managing the crisis. So yes, there's something to talk about. Adrienne stared into her untouched coffee. I don't know what to do. It was the most honest thing she'd said in years. Caroline softened. What do you want to do? I want to go back to 4 months ago when everything was simple, when I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted and how to get it. Was it really that simple? Because from where I stood, you looked miserable. Adrienne looked up sharply. I was successful. You were alone. Caroline reached across the table. Addie, I love you, but you've been running from connection your whole life. Ever since Dad left, ever since Mom checked out emotionally, you decided that needing people was a weakness. So you built this empire where you didn't need anyone. That's not... It is. And it worked for a long time. But then Marcus humiliated you, and instead of dealing with the actual hurt, you tried to solve it like a business problem. You hired someone to play husband, thinking you could control the outcome. Caroline paused. But you fell for him, didn't you? You fell for Noah and Maya and the whole messy reality of actually caring about people. The words hit like a physical blow because they were completely, devastatingly true. "I don't know how to do this," Adrienne whispered. "I don't know how to want something I can't control." Nobody does. That's what makes it terrifying. But Addie, you've spent 15 years proving you're brave enough to risk everything for business success. Maybe it's time to prove you're brave enough to risk everything for something that actually matters. The board wants me to choose the company or Noah. Then choose. It's not that simple. It is that simple. It's just not easy. Caroline squeezed her hand. What would you regret more? Losing the company or losing him? Adrienne closed her eyes. She tried to imagine her life without Vail Capital. No more corner office, no more board meetings, no more being one of the most powerful women in Manhattan finance. The thought made her chest tight with panic. But then she imagined her life without Noah, without his steady presence at the desk outside her office, without Maya's questions about space and cartwheels and best days ever, without the possibility of family dinners and shared glances during meetings, and someone who saw past her armor to the person underneath. That thought didn't just make her chest tight, it made her feel like she was drowning. "I think I've been asking the wrong question this whole time," Adrienne said quietly. "I kept asking myself if Noah was worth the risk, but the real question is whether I'm brave enough to deserve him." "And are you?" Adrienne looked at her sister. "I don't know, but I think I want to try." Caroline smiled. "Then stop sitting here and go tell him that." "I can't, not yet. I have to fix the board situation first, figure out how to—" "No." Caroline's voice was firm. "You have to tell Noah first, before you strategize or plan or try to control the outcome. You have to be honest with him about what you want, even if you don't know how it's going to work. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing you've always done, managing people instead of trusting them." She was right. Adrienne knew she was right, but the thought of going to Noah without a plan, without a solution, without any guarantee that he'd even listen, it was the most terrifying thing she'd ever considered. "What if he says no?" Adrienne asked. "What if I tell him how I feel and he's already decided to walk away? Then at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll know you were brave enough to fight for something real instead of just managing your image." Adrienne sat with that for a long moment. Then she stood, grabbing her coat. "Where are you going?" Caroline asked. "To Queens. To do something terrifying and probably stupid." "That's my sister," Caroline grinned. "Go get your family back." The subway ride to Queens felt endless. Adrienne rehearsed what she wanted to say, then abandoned every script because none of them felt honest enough. By the time she reached Noah's building, her hands were shaking. She pressed the buzzer for 4C. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Panic started to creep in. What if he wasn't home? What if he'd taken Maya and left, decided to start fresh somewhere without the weight of this disaster following him? Then a voice behind her said, "He's at the park, 3 blocks east." Adrienne turned. An elderly woman with groceries was unlocking the building door. "I'm sorry?" "Noah and Maya. Thursday afternoons they go to the park. 3 blocks that way." She gestured. "You're the wife, right? I've seen your picture." Yes. "He's a good man. Don't let him slip away because you're too proud to fight for him." The woman disappeared into the building, leaving Adrienne standing on the sidewalk. She walked 3 blocks east and found the park. It was small, just a playground and some benches, but she spotted them immediately. Noah was pushing Maya on a swing, both of them bundled in winter coats. Maya's laughter carried across the playground, bright and genuine. Adrienne's throat tightened watching them. This was what she stood to lose. Not just Noah, but this. The simple joy of a father and daughter on a Thursday afternoon, the life she'd glimpsed but never let herself fully enter. Maya saw her first. "Adrienne!" She jumped off the swing mid-motion, stumbling slightly before running over. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk to your dad." Noah had frozen by the swings, his expression unreadable. Maya looked between them with the perceptiveness children have when adults are pretending everything's fine. "Are you fighting? Sarah's parents fight all the time, and then they have to have discussions in private." "We're not fighting," Adrienne said. "We just need to talk about some grown-up things." "Boring." Maya grabbed Adrienne's hand. "But first you have to see how high I can swing now. Daddy says I'm going to fly off into space if I go any higher. Before Adrienne could respond, she was being dragged toward the swings. Noah remained where he was, watching with that same guarded expression. "Push me," Maya demanded, climbing back onto the swing. Adrienne positioned herself behind the swing, feeling completely out of her depth. She'd never pushed a child on a swing before, never spent Thursday afternoons at playgrounds. Never done any of this. But she pushed, and Maya laughed, and for just a moment, the weight of everything else faded. "Higher," Maya called, "like Daddy does." "I don't know if trust yourself," Noah said quietly. He'd moved closer, standing a few feet away. "She's tougher than she looks." Adrienne pushed harder, and Maya squealed with delight. After a few minutes, Maya announced she was bored of swings and wanted to explore the jungle gym. She ran off, leaving Adrienne and Noah standing awkwardly by the empty swing set. "You shouldn't be here," Noah said finally. "I know. You should be managing the crisis, saving your company, making strategic decisions. I know that too. So why aren't you?" Adrienne took a breath. This was it. No script, no plan, no control. Because I realized something today. I've spent my entire adult life building walls to protect myself from caring too much about anything I couldn't control. And it worked. I built an empire. I became powerful and successful and completely, utterly alone. She paused. "And then you came along and offered me something I didn't know I wanted. Not just the marriage contract, but the possibility of something real. And that terrified me." Noah's expression hadn't changed. "You said this was strategic. You said it was about proving Marcus wrong." I lied. To you, to myself, to everyone. Because admitting I wanted connection, wanted family, wanted someone to come home to. That felt like admitting weakness. Like admitting I'd failed at being the woman who didn't need anyone. "Adrienne, please, let me finish before I lose my nerve." She wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. "When the board gave me an ultimatum today, they asked me to choose between the company and you. And my first instinct was to choose the company because that's what I've always done. Business over people. Success over sentiment. But then I tried to imagine my life without you and Maya, and I couldn't breathe." Maya's laughter carried from the jungle gym where she was hanging upside down. "I don't have a plan," Adrienne continued. "I don't know how to fix the board situation, or the press, or any of it. I just know that I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose this, even if it's messy and complicated and nothing like the controlled partnership I thought I was signing up for." Noah was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What are you asking me, Adrienne?" "I'm asking if you meant what you said, about this feeling real to you. Because it feels real to me too, and I'm sorry it took me this long to admit it. I'm sorry I was too scared to say it when you asked, but I'm saying it now." She met his eyes. "I want this to be real. I want to try for something more than 6 months. I want," her voice cracked, "I want a family, with you and Maya, if you'll still have me." The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Noah looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes, hope fighting with hurt, want battling with self-protection. "You hurt me," he said finally. "When you couldn't answer my question yesterday, when you hesitated, that hurt. I know, I'm sorry. And I can't keep being the one who's all in while you're still calculating risk and managing outcomes. That's not fair to me or to Maya. I know that too. So if we do this, if we try to make this real, I need to know you're in, completely. Not strategically or conditionally or until the next crisis threatens your reputation. I need to know you're choosing this, choosing us, even when it's hard." Adrienne felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I am. I'm choosing you, both of you, even though I don't know how to do this, even though I'll probably mess it up, even though—" Noah kissed her. It wasn't like their brief professional kiss at City Hall. This was real and desperate and full of everything they'd both been holding back for months. Adrienne's hands found his coat, pulling him closer, and Noah's arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "You're really choosing us?" he asked quietly. "Even if it means losing the company?" "Even then. Though I'm hoping I can figure out a way to keep both. I'm told I'm fairly good at solving impossible problems." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him since the article leaked. "You are pretty impressive when you want to be." "Daddy! Adrienne!" Maya was running toward them. "Are you done with your boring grown-up talk? Because I'm freezing and I want hot chocolate." Noah pulled back slightly but kept one arm around Adrienne's waist. "Hot chocolate sounds perfect. You want to come with us?" He was asking Adrienne, giving her the chance to be part of this instead of just an observer. "I'd love to," she said. They walked to a small cafe near the park, Maya chattering about everything and nothing while Noah's hand found Adrienne's. It was such a simple gesture, holding hands while walking down a sidewalk, but it felt monumental. This was what normal people did, normal families. And for the first time in her life, Adrienne wanted to be normal, more than she wanted to be powerful. Over hot chocolate that was too sweet and cookies that left crumbs everywhere, Maya asked the question Adrienne had been dreading. "Are you going to live with us now? For real this time?" Adrienne looked at Noah. They hadn't discussed logistics or practicalities or any of the details that made arrangements work. "Would you want that?" Adrienne asked Maya. "Would you want me to live with you and your dad?" Maya considered this seriously. "Would you make us eat healthy food all the time?" "Probably not. I don't really cook." "Would you try to be my mom even though I already have a mom somewhere?" The question was more complex than Maya probably realized. Noah tensed slightly. "No," Adrienne said carefully. "I would never try to replace your mom, but I could be someone else who cares about you, like a friend maybe, or a bonus family member. Whatever feels right to you." Maya seemed satisfied with this answer. "Okay, then yes, you can live with us, but you have to learn to do cartwheels first. It's important." "That's a very reasonable condition." After they left the cafe, Maya wanted to show Adrienne her favorite bookstore. Noah let her run ahead while he and Adrienne walked more slowly. "I meant what I said," Adrienne told him, "about choosing you both. But I need to handle the board situation properly. I need to protect the company I built, and I need to protect you from any more fallout." "How are you going to do that?" "I have an idea. But it's risky, and it might backfire completely." "Tell me." She did. She explained the plan that had been forming in her mind since leaving the cafe with Caroline. Noah listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That's either brilliant or career suicide," he said finally. "Sometimes they're the same thing. If you do this, there's no going back. You'll be burning bridges with people you've worked with for years." "I know, but I'm tired of building my life around other people's approval. I'm tired of making myself smaller so men like Richard Davidson feel comfortable. I'm tired of—" She stopped walking. "I'm tired of being afraid, Noah, of caring too much or wanting too much or being too much. So yes, it's risky, but I think it's worth it." Noah smiled. "Then let's do it." "You don't have to be part of this. You could take that job with Jennifer Walsh, start fresh somewhere without all this baggage." "I'm not going anywhere," Noah said firmly. "You're choosing us, remember? That means we're in this together, all of it." Adrienne felt something warm bloom in her chest. Partnership. Real partnership. Not just professional courtesy or strategic alignment, but actual partnership where two people face challenges together. "Okay," she said, "together." That night, Adrienne went home to her penthouse and worked until 3 in the morning. She drafted statements, made calls to her lawyer, and prepared for what she was about to do. It was the biggest risk she'd ever taken, bigger than starting her own firm, bigger than any investment decision. Because this time, she wasn't just risking money or reputation. She was risking everything she'd built for the chance at something she'd never had. The next morning, Adrienne called an emergency board meeting. Every member showed up, clearly expecting her to announce her resignation or her divorce. She gave them neither. "Thank you all for coming," Adrienne said, standing at the head of the conference table. "I know you've given me an ultimatum. Choose between my marriage and the company, and I've made my decision." Richard Davidson leaned forward. "We're glad you're being reasonable about this. I'm not resigning, and I'm not divorcing my husband." Silence. "Instead," Adrienne continued, "I'm proposing a restructuring of Vail Capital. I'm stepping back from CEO to become executive chair. Noah Bennett will take over as CEO." The room exploded. "That's insane. He has no experience. You can't be serious." Adrian waited for the noise to die down. I am completely serious. Noah has spent 3 years learning every aspect of this business. He's brilliant with clients, excellent with strategy. And as you saw at the Metropolitan Summit, he's more than capable of representing this firm at the highest levels. More importantly, he hasn't spent the last 15 years making the same enemies I have. He's a fresh face with fresh ideas, and that's exactly what this company needs right now. Margaret Chen was shaking her head. Even if we accepted this, which we don't, the optics are still terrible. You're literally handing your company over to your husband. I'm handing my company over to the most qualified person I know. The fact that he's also my husband is irrelevant to his capabilities. Adrian pulled out a folder. I've had our legal team draw up a new structure. Noah will be CEO with full authority. I'll maintain my equity stake but have no operational control. Everything will be properly documented and approved by independent board members. It's completely legitimate. It's completely crazy, Richard said. Noah Bennett was your assistant 6 months ago. And 6 months ago, none of you thought I was capable of running a firm because I was a woman in my 20s. We all start somewhere, Richard. The question is whether we're smart enough to recognize talent when we see it. She looked around the table. I know this isn't what you expected. I know it's unconventional, but I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of my decision. You can accept it and work with us to make this transition successful, or you can reject it, and I'll sell my shares and start a competing firm with Noah leading it. Either way, I'm done letting other people's discomfort dictate my choices. The silence that followed was different this time. She could see them calculating, weighing options, realizing she wasn't bluffing. Finally, Margaret spoke. If we agree to this, and I'm not saying we are, Noah would need to prove himself. No special treatment, no protected status. He succeeds or fails on his own merit. I wouldn't want it any other way, Noah said from the doorway. Everyone turned. He was standing there in his best suit, holding a tablet with what Adrian knew was a complete 6-month strategic plan for Vale Capital. I didn't ask for this position, Noah continued, walking into the room. But I won't run from it either. I've spent 3 years watching Adrian build this company while managing people who constantly underestimated her. I learned from the best. And I'm ready to prove that I deserve this opportunity based on my own capabilities, not just my relationship with her. He set the tablet on the table. This is my proposal for Vale Capital's next phase. I'd appreciate if you'd review it before making your decision. Richard picked it up skeptically. As he started reading, his expression shifted from dismissive to intrigued. He passed it to Margaret, who did the same. This is actually good, Richard admitted grudgingly. Thank you, Noah said. I've also been in talks with 3 major investors who are specifically interested in working with me on emerging market opportunities. They're willing to commit capital if I'm leading the initiatives. Who? Margaret demanded. Noah named them. All 3 were heavy hitters, the kind of investors who could legitimize any firm they partnered with. Adrienne watched her board members' faces as they processed this information. Noah wasn't just asking for a handout. He'd come prepared with concrete plans and real commitments. He was proving he deserved this. The meeting lasted another 2 hours. Questions were asked, concerns were raised, logistics were debated. But by the end, a tentative agreement had been reached. Noah would start as interim CEO with a 6-month evaluation period. If he performed well, the position would become permanent. Adrienne would transition to executive chair, maintaining her equity but stepping back from daily operations. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. After the board members left, Adrienne and Noah stood alone in the conference room. That was terrifying, Noah said. You were perfect. I still can't believe you did that. You just handed me your company. I didn't hand you anything. You earned it. And it's not my company anymore. It's ours. She smiled. Partners, remember? Noah pulled her close. Partners. I'm still getting used to that word meaning something real. Me too. They stood there for a moment, wrapped up in each other, until Adrienne's phone buzzed. Her publicist. I need to issue a statement, Adrienne said, about all of this. The marriage, the restructuring, everything. What are you going to say? The truth, that I made mistakes, that I'm learning, and that I'm choosing to build something real instead of just managing my image. That's brave. No, Adrienne said. Brave was you standing up to Marcus at the summit. Brave was you defending us even when I couldn't defend myself. This is just me finally catching up to your courage. The press conference was scheduled for that afternoon. Adrienne stood at a podium in Vail Capital's main conference room with cameras pointed at her and reporters ready to ask impossible questions. Noah stood beside her, not behind her, not separate from her, beside her. "Thank you all for coming," Adrienne began. "I'm sure you have many questions about recent events, and I'm here to address them honestly. 4 months ago, I made a decision that shocked many people. I proposed a marriage contract to my executive assistant, Noah Bennett. The terms were transactional, the timeline was fixed, and the motivations were strategic." She paused, letting that sink in. "I won't lie and say it started as a love story. It didn't. It started as a wounded ego and a desperate attempt to prove someone wrong. But somewhere between the contract and now, something unexpected happened. I fell in love with my husband, and with his daughter, and with the possibility of building a life that wasn't just about success and power and winning." The room was silent except for camera shutters clicking. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or understanding. I'm simply telling you the truth. My marriage began as a mistake and evolved into the best decision I've ever made. And today, I'm making another decision that many of you will question. I'm stepping back as CEO of Vail Capital and promoting Noah Bennett to lead the company." The reporters erupted with questions, but Adrienne held up a hand. "Noah isn't qualified for this position because he's my husband. He's qualified because he's brilliant, strategic, and capable of seeing opportunities I miss. He's qualified because he's proven himself to investors, clients, and colleagues who had every reason to doubt him. And he's qualified because he's willing to take risks for what he believes in, something I'd forgotten how to do until he reminded me." She looked at Noah. "I spent 15 years building walls to protect myself from needing anyone. And then I met someone who was brave enough to need me back. Brave enough to challenge me. Brave enough to see past the armor to the person underneath. So yes, this is unconventional. Yes, people will criticize it. But I'm done making decisions based on other people's approval. I'm choosing partnership over power. I'm choosing family over image. And I'm choosing to believe that the best investments aren't always the most calculated ones." She stepped back and Noah stepped forward. "I know many of you have questions about my qualifications," he said calmly. "I welcome those questions. I welcome the scrutiny. Because I'm not asking you to trust me based on my relationship with Adrienne. I'm asking you to judge me based on my work. Give me 6 months. If I haven't proven myself by then, I'll step down. But I think you'll be surprised by what we can build together." The questions came fast and brutal after that. Reporters asked about the money, the contract, the ethics. Noah fielded them all with the same steady confidence he'd shown at the summit. Watching him, Adrienne realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of losing the company, not of public opinion, not of the risk she'd just taken. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't facing it alone. That evening, back at Noah's apartment, which would soon be their apartment, Maya was working on her homework at the kitchen table while Adrienne attempted to help. Noah was making dinner and the whole scene was so domestic, so normal, that Adrienne kept expecting someone to tell her she was doing it wrong. "You're overthinking it," Maya said, looking at the math problem they were solving. "It's just addition." "Right, just addition. You run a whole company, but you can't do second-grade math." "Apparently not." Maya giggled. "That's okay. Daddy can't do cartwheels, and he's pretty smart, too." Noah brought over plates of pasta. "Thanks for that, Maya. Very supportive." "I'm just being honest. You said honesty is important." "I did say that." They ate dinner together, and Adrienne watched Maya tell her father about her day with such trust and openness. This is what she'd been missing. This is what all the success and power had never given her. After dinner, after Maya went to bed, Adrienne and Noah stood on the small balcony overlooking the street below. It wasn't the spectacular view from her penthouse, but somehow it felt more real. "Are you sure about this?" Noah asked quietly. "About all of it? You're giving up a lot." "I'm not giving up anything. I'm gaining everything I didn't know I needed." She leaned against him. "Besides, I'm not leaving the company. I'm just sharing it with someone I trust." "That's a first for you." "Everything about this is a first for me, but I'm learning." She paused. "I love you, Noah. I should have said it sooner, but I'm saying it now. I love you and I love Maya, and I want to build a real life with both of you." Noah turned her to face him. "I love you too. Even when you're terrifying and strategic and completely impossible to predict, maybe especially then. That's probably not healthy. Probably not. But it's honest. He kissed her, and Adrienne felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the knowledge that she'd finally stopped running from the one thing she'd always wanted: belonging. The first month of Noah's tenure as CEO was exactly as difficult as they'd both anticipated. Every decision he made was scrutinized. Every meeting he led was analyzed for signs of weakness. Critics waited eagerly for him to fail, to prove that Adrienne's faith in him had been misplaced nepotism rather than genuine recognition of talent. But Noah didn't fail. He restructured 3 underperforming divisions, secured 2 major investment deals, and managed to do what Adrienne had struggled with for years. He made Richard Davidson actually laugh during a board meeting. It was a small thing, but it shifted the energy in the room. People started to relax around him, started to see him as a leader rather than just Adrienne's controversial husband. The press coverage evolved too. The initial mockery gave way to cautious observation, then to grudging respect. By week 6, the Wall Street Journal ran a profile titled "The Unexpected CEO: How Noah Bennett is Redefining Leadership at Vail Capital." Adrienne read it over coffee one Saturday morning while Noah made pancakes and Maya constructed an elaborate fortress out of couch cushions in the living room. They'd moved most of Adrienne's essential belongings to the Queen's apartment 2 weeks earlier, though her penthouse remained as a secondary workspace for late nights and early meetings. "Listen to this," Adrienne said, reading aloud. "Bennett's approach represents a departure from traditional aggressive investment strategies. He prioritizes sustainable growth over quick returns, collaborative decision-making over top-down authority, and long-term client relationships over short-term profit maximization. In an industry often criticized for its cutthroat culture, Bennett's leadership style feels almost revolutionary." Noah flipped a pancake without looking up. Revolutionary is a strong word for just treating people like human beings. "That's exactly what makes it revolutionary in our industry," Adrienne said. "You're proving that success and decency aren't mutually exclusive. I learned from watching you. You were always decent to the people who worked for you, even when you were being terrifying to everyone else. I was decent to you because you were irreplaceable. There's a difference." "Is there?" Noah brought over a plate of pancakes. "I think you were decent to me because, deep down, you're actually a good person who spent too many years pretending otherwise." Maya emerged from her cushion fortress. "Are we talking about feelings? Because I have feelings about these pancakes. Specifically that I want 12 of them." "You can have 3, Noah said. "That's so unfair." "Adrienne, tell him to give me 12. Adrienne looked at Noah, who was clearly trying not to smile. "I think 3 is pretty reasonable, Maya, but maybe 4 if you promise to eat actual vegetables at dinner tonight." "You two are teaming up against me," Maya said dramatically. "This is oppression." "This is parenting," Noah corrected. "Get used to it." The word hung in the air for a moment. Parenting, plural, as if it was the most natural thing in the world for Adrienne to be part of that equation. Maya didn't seem to notice anything significant. She just grabbed her pancakes and returned to her fortress. But Adrienne felt the weight of it, the casual inclusion, the assumption that she belonged in these decisions, these moments. She was a parent now. Somehow, without planning it or preparing for it, she'd become part of Maya's life in a way that felt permanent. "You okay?" Noah asked quietly, sitting beside her. "Yeah, just processing." "Processing what?" "The fact that I have a family now. A real one, and I have no idea what I'm doing." Noah took her hand. "Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just making educated guesses and hoping we don't mess up too badly. But we're doing it together, which makes it slightly less terrifying." "Only slightly?" "Parenthood is always terrifying, but the good kind of terrifying. Happy scared, like Maya would say." Adrienne leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I'd have this. Any of this." "Neither did I, but I'm glad we do." They sat there for a moment, listening to Maya narrate an elaborate story about her cushion fortress defending against dragon attacks, and Adrienne realized this was her best day ever. Not a business triumph or a major deal closing. Just pancakes and cushion forts and the quiet certainty of belonging somewhere. The following Tuesday, Adrienne had lunch with Caroline at a small bistro in Midtown. Her sister had been asking for updates on the new living situation, and Adrienne had been avoiding the conversation because she wasn't sure how to explain that her entire life had shifted on its axis and she was still adjusting to the new gravity. "You look different," Caroline said, studying her across the table. "Different how?" "Happier. Less like you're about to fire someone or take over a country. More like an actual human person." "I've always been a human person." "Technically, yes, but you've spent most of your adult life cosplaying as a corporate robot. This is new." Caroline sipped her wine. "It's nice. You should do it more often." "Do what? Be happy?" "Be yourself. The actual Adrienne, not the carefully curated version you show investors and board members." Adrienne picked at her salad. "I'm still figuring out who that is. Turns out I've been performing for so long, I'm not entirely sure what's real and what's just habit." "That's fair. But you're learning. That's what matters." Caroline paused. "So, how's domestic life? Are you driving Noah crazy with spreadsheets for family dinner planning?" "I tried that the first week. He told me to stop optimizing joy and just experience it." "Smart man." "I'm learning to let go of control, slowly, very slowly." "And Maya? How's that relationship developing?" Adrienne set down her fork, choosing her words carefully. "She's remarkable. She asked me last week if I could come to her school's parent-teacher conference because her dad had to work late. And when I got there, her teacher introduced me as her mother without thinking twice about it." "How did that feel?" "Terrifying and wonderful simultaneously. I don't want to overstep. She has a biological mother somewhere, even if she's not present. I don't want Maya to feel like I'm trying to replace anyone." "Did you talk to Noah about it?" "I did. He said Maya's mother left when she was 2 and hasn't made contact since. Signed away her parental rights completely. So legally, there's no conflict. But emotionally," Adrienne trailed off. "I just want to be careful. Want Maya to define what our relationship is, not have it imposed on her." Caroline reached across the table. "The fact that you're thinking about this, being intentional about it, that makes you a good parent already. Whether Maya calls you mom or Adrienne or something else entirely, what matters is that you're showing up for her." "I'm trying. Some days are better than others." "That's literally all anyone can do." They finished lunch talking about other things: Caroline's job, their mother's latest passive-aggressive phone call, the upcoming holidays. But as Adrienne walked back to the office afterward, she thought about what her sister had said. She was showing up. Maybe that's all parenting really was: showing up consistently, caring deeply, and hoping you didn't permanently damage the tiny human in your care. At the office, Noah was in back-to-back meetings all afternoon. Adrienne worked from her new office, smaller than her old corner suite but still impressive, handling the executive chair responsibilities that involved strategy oversight and investor relations without day-to-day operational control. It was strange at first, stepping back from the constant decision-making, but she was discovering that she liked having space to think bigger picture, to focus on long-term vision rather than getting buried in details. And watching Noah lead gave her a perspective she'd never had before. He was good at this. Different from her style, but equally effective. Around 4 o'clock, her assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Vale, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." "Who is it?" She wouldn't give her name, just said you'd want to hear what she has to say. Adrienne's instinct was to refuse. She had policies about unscheduled meetings for exactly this reason, but something in her assistant's expression suggested this wasn't a normal situation. "Send her in." The woman who entered was in her early 30s, professionally dressed, with nervous energy that made Adrienne immediately defensive. She looked vaguely familiar, though Adrienne couldn't place where she'd seen her before. "Ms. Vale, thank you for seeing me. I'm Jennifer Morrison. I used to work for Marcus Reynolds." Everything clicked into place. Adrienne gestured to the chair across from her desk. "I assume this isn't a social visit." "No. I came to tell you something you deserve to know." Jennifer sat, clutching her bag like a lifeline. "I'm the one who leaked your prenup to the press." The admission hung in the air between them. Adrienne kept her voice level. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand it wasn't personal. Marcus offered me $50,000 to do it. I was drowning in student loans, my mother needed surgery I couldn't afford, and he made it sound like I'd be doing journalism a favor by exposing the truth. She paused. I convinced myself you were just another rich person playing games with people's lives, that exposing you was morally justified. And now? Now I've watched what happened after. How the media tore into you and Noah. How you risked your entire company to stand by him. How he stepped up and proved himself despite everyone expecting him to fail. Jennifer's voice cracked slightly. I saw the press conference where you talked about choosing family over image, and I realized I didn't expose anything truthful. I just weaponized your vulnerability for money. Adrienne studied her. The woman looked genuinely remorseful, but that didn't undo the damage. Why come here? Adrienne asked. Why confess? Because Marcus is planning something else. He's been working with the business journalist on a follow-up piece questioning Noah's qualifications, suggesting you're still secretly running the company from behind the scenes, undermining everything you've both built. Jennifer pulled out a folder. These are the interview notes and draft questions. I thought you should know what's coming. Adrienne took the folder but didn't open it. You realize confessing to this could destroy your career. Marcus could sue you. I could sue you. I know, but I can't keep being part of his vindictive crusade against you. He's obsessed with proving you're a fraud, and I'm done helping him. Jennifer stood. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to have the information to defend yourself, and to say I'm sorry for my part in hurting you. After Jennifer left, Adrienne sat alone with the folder for a long time. She could open it, read Marcus's planned attack, prepare a defense. That's what the old Adrienne would have done. Strategized, controlled the narrative, managed the outcome. But she'd promised herself she was done playing those games. Instead, she picked up her phone and called Noah. Hey, he answered. I'm between meetings. What's up? Marcus is planning another media attack. I have advance warning, but I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep defending us to people who've already decided we're wrong. Oh, what do you want to do? I want to ignore it. Let him waste his energy while we focus on actually living our lives. Is that naive? Noah was quiet for a moment. Maybe, but I think it's also healthy. We've proven ourselves to the people who matter, the board, the investors, our clients. Random media commentary isn't going to change the work we're doing. So we just let it go? We let it go. Marcus can waste his time being bitter. We'll be too busy being successful. Adrienne smiled. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too busy being terrifying to notice. That evening, Adrienne threw the folder away without reading it. Whatever Marcus was planning, whatever narrative he wanted to spin, it didn't matter anymore. She'd stopped performing for an audience that would never be satisfied. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were chaotic in the best way. Noah's investor commitments were paying off spectacularly. Vail Capital closed 3 major deals in 2 weeks, and the board meeting that month was actually pleasant. Richard Davidson even shook Noah's hand and said he'd been wrong to doubt him. At home, Adrienne was learning the rhythms of family life, Maya's homework schedules, school pickup logistics, the elaborate negotiations required to get a 6-year-old to eat vegetables. It was mundane and exhausting and completely wonderful. She still worked long hours, still managed complex investor relationships and strategic planning. But now she also attended school plays and helped build science projects and learned that sometimes the most important meeting was dinner with her family. The Thursday before Thanksgiving, Maya's school had a family event where students presented projects about what they were thankful for. Adrienne had been nervously anticipating it all week because she knew Maya had been working on something but wouldn't tell anyone what it was. When they arrived at the school, Maya ran off to join her classmates, leaving Noah and Adrienne to find seats among the other parents. Adrienne noticed some stares, some whispers, but fewer than before. People were getting used to them, or at least getting bored with the scandal. When Maya's turn came, she walked to the front of the classroom holding a poster board covered in pictures and drawings. Adrienne's heart clenched when she saw what it was. There were photos of Maya and Noah at the beach. Drawings of their apartment. Pictures Maya had clearly taken herself of Adrienne reading on the couch, or Noah cooking dinner. And in the center, in Maya's careful handwriting, my family. I'm thankful for my dad, Maya announced to the room. Because he's the best dad in the whole world, and he makes really good pancakes, and he always helps with my homework, even when he's tired. Noah's eyes were suspiciously bright. And I'm thankful for Adrienne, Maya continued, because she married my dad and now she lives with us, and she's teaching me about business and how to be brave even when you're scared. She's not my mom, but she's my family, and that's important. She pointed to a drawing in the corner, 3 stick figures holding hands. This is us. And we're not perfect, but we're real, and that's what matters. The presentation ended and Maya returned to her seat looking proud. Other kids presented their projects, but Adrienne barely heard them. She was too busy trying not to cry in a room full of strangers. Afterward, as they walked to the car, Maya grabbed both their hands. "Did you like my project?" she asked. "It was perfect," Adrienne managed. "Good. Because it's true. You are my family, both of you." Maya swung their joined hands. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Noah laughed. "You want to celebrate your own presentation?" "Yes. It's important to celebrate achievements. Adrienne taught me that." "I don't remember teaching you that." "You said it during dinner last week when Daddy closed that big deal. You said achievements should be celebrated. Ice cream is celebrating." Adrienne looked at Noah over Maya's head. He was smiling, and she knew what he was thinking. Their daughter had weaponized their own lessons against them. "Ice cream it is," Adrienne conceded. "I knew you'd say yes," Maya said smugly. "You always do." Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and clear. Adrienne had never hosted a holiday before, had usually spent them working or avoiding her mother's passive-aggressive commentary. But this year was different. Rebecca and her husband were coming, along with Caroline and Adrienne's mother, who'd been shockingly civil since the press conference. Noah had taken charge of the turkey while Adrienne handled side dishes, which mostly meant ordering from expensive restaurants and pretending she'd made them. "You know they can tell you didn't make these, right?" Noah said, unpacking the delivered mashed potatoes. "I'm choosing to believe that love is the secret ingredient, and I loved ordering them very much. That's not how cooking works. It's how my cooking works." Maya ran through the kitchen wearing a handmade pilgrim hat. "When is everyone getting here? I want to show Aunt Rebecca my project from school." "Soon," Noah said. "Why don't you set the table?" "Can I use the fancy plates?" "We don't have fancy plates." "Yes, we do. Adrienne bought them last week." Noah looked at Adrienne. "You bought fancy plates?" "I bought plates that won't embarrass us when we have guests. There's a difference." "We're hosting Thanksgiving dinner and you're worried about embarrassment?" "I'm worried about doing this right. This is our first real holiday as a family." Noah crossed the kitchen and pulled her into a hug. "It's going to be perfect because we're together. The plates don't matter." "The plates absolutely matter." "Fine. The plates matter, but not as much as you think they do." The doorbell rang and Maya raced to answer it. Within minutes, the apartment was full of people and noise and warmth. Rebecca hugged Adrienne like they were old friends. Caroline brought wine and gossip about their mother's latest dating disaster. Even Adrienne's mother seemed genuinely happy to be there, which was possibly a first. Dinner was chaotic. The turkey was slightly dry, the store-bought mashed potatoes were obviously store-bought, and Maya talked so much she barely ate. But it was perfect in its imperfection. At one point, Noah stood to make a toast. "I'm not good at speeches," he said, "but I wanted to say that I'm grateful for this, all of this. 6 months ago, I never could have imagined this life, this family, this happiness." He looked at Adrienne. "I'm grateful for someone who was brave enough to take a risk on something impossible. And I'm grateful it worked." "It almost didn't work," Adrienne pointed out. "But it did. That's what matters." Later, after everyone had left and Maya was asleep, Adrienne and Noah cleaned up the kitchen together. It was domestic and mundane and exactly what Adrienne had never thought she wanted. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For being patient with me. For not giving up when I was too scared to admit what I wanted. For seeing something in me worth fighting for." Noah dried a plate and set it carefully in the cabinet. "You know what I realized today? Watching you with Maya, with our families, with all of this chaos, you were never broken. You were just convinced you had to be perfect, and perfect doesn't leave room for mess or vulnerability or needing people. And now? Now you're learning that messy and vulnerable might actually be better than perfect. Might be? Definitely better, significantly better, exponentially better." Adrienne threw a dish towel at him. He caught it and pulled her close. "I love our life," she said. I love our messy, chaotic, imperfect life. Me too. The 6-month mark of their marriage came and went without ceremony. The contract that had started everything became irrelevant compared to the reality they'd built. They never officially dissolved the agreement because they never needed to. It had simply evolved into something real. By January, Noah had fully proven himself as CEO. The board approved his permanent appointment, and Vail Capital posted its strongest quarter in company history. Adrienne's role as executive chair allowed her to focus on strategic vision while maintaining work-life balance, a phrase she'd once mocked but now understood. Marcus Reynolds' attempted media attack fizzled without impact. The journalist he'd been working with declined to publish the piece after interviewing several Vail Capital employees who had nothing but praise for Noah's leadership. Marcus eventually stopped trying to undermine them, though whether it was acceptance or exhaustion, Adrienne didn't care to know. In February, Maya asked if Adrienne could be listed as her emergency contact at school alongside Noah. In March, they bought a larger apartment, still in Queens, still grounded in the neighborhood they loved, but with space for everyone to breathe. In April, on a random Tuesday evening, Maya asked the question that had been hanging in the air for months. "Adrienne," she said, looking up from her homework, "can I call you Mom?" The apartment went quiet. Noah paused mid-chop in the kitchen. Adrienne's heart stopped entirely. "You don't have to," Adrienne said carefully. "I'm happy being Adrienne. I know I don't have to, but I want to. You do all the mom things. You help with homework and come to my school stuff and make me eat vegetables. That's what moms do. What about your biological mother?" Maya shrugged with the pragmatism only children possess. "I don't remember her. She's not here. You are. That makes you more of a mom than she is." Adrienne looked at Noah, who had tears in his eyes. "If you want to call me Mom," Adrienne said slowly, "I would be honored. But only if it feels right to you." Maya seemed to consider this. "Okay, I'll try it and see if it feels weird. Mom, can you pass the eraser?" Adrienne handed over the eraser, her hand shaking slightly. "Nope, not weird," Maya announced. "I like it. Mom it is." Just like that, Adrienne became a mother. No legal proceedings, no grand ceremony, just a 6-year-old's decision and the quiet acceptance of a new reality. That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrienne stood in the doorway of the bedroom watching her breathe. Noah came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You okay?" he asked. "I have a daughter." "You've had a daughter for months." "She's just naming it now." "This is real, isn't it? This isn't a contract or an arrangement or a temporary situation. This is my actual life." "This is your actual life. Our actual life." He kissed her temple. "Is it what you wanted?" Adrienne thought about the question. A year ago, she would have said she wanted success, respect, vindication. She would have measured her life in quarterly reports and board approvals and market position. But now? "It's better than what I wanted," she said, "because I didn't know enough to want this. I didn't know this kind of happiness existed." Spring turned to summer. Vail Capital continued to thrive under Noah's leadership, and Adrienne discovered she didn't miss being CEO as much as she'd feared. She was doing work that mattered, making strategic decisions that shaped the company's future, but she was also present for Maya's soccer games and family dinners and lazy Sunday mornings. One Saturday in June, almost exactly 1 year after their City Hall wedding, they took Maya to Coney Island. The boardwalk was crowded with families, the air thick with the smell of salt water and fried food. Maya insisted on riding the Cyclone despite being barely tall enough. "This is it," she announced as they stood in line. "This is going to be my new best day ever." "Your old best day ever was also the Cyclone," Noah pointed out. "I can have multiple best days ever. That's allowed." They rode the roller coaster, Adrienne screaming more than Maya, Noah laughing at both of them, and afterward got ice cream and walked along the beach. Maya ran ahead, collecting shells and jumping over waves. "I have something for you," Noah said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box. Not a ring box, they already had those. Something else. Adrienne opened it and found a simple silver bracelet with 3 charms. A tiny building representing Vail Capital, a star for Maya's space obsession, and a heart with 2 initials intertwined. "It's not much," Noah said, "but I wanted you to have something that represented all of this. All of us." Adrienne couldn't speak. She just held the bracelet and tried not to cry on a public beach. "I love you," she managed finally. I love you so much it's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Happy, scared, terrifying. Noah smiled and fastened the bracelet around her wrist. That's the best kind. Maya ran back to them, soaking wet and covered in sand. Can we ride the cyclone again? Absolutely not, both parents said simultaneously. You're both so boring. When I'm a grown-up, I'm riding the cyclone 12 times in a row. When you're a grown-up, you can do whatever you want, Adrienne said. But today, we're getting dinner and then going home. Fine. But I'm choosing where we eat. Also fine. They walked back toward the boardwalk, Maya between them, each holding one of her hands. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting everything gold and orange. Tourists took photos. Families laughed. The world kept spinning. And Adrienne realized that this ordinary, perfect moment was everything she'd been searching for without knowing it. She'd spent years building an empire, proving her worth, fighting to be taken seriously in a world that constantly underestimated her. And she'd succeeded. She'd built something remarkable. But this was better. This was love without contracts, family without conditions, happiness without having to earn it. This was what it felt like to finally stop running. That night, back in their apartment, after Maya was asleep and the day's adventure had settled into memory, Adrienne stood at the window looking out at the Queen's skyline. It wasn't as impressive as the Manhattan views she'd once commanded, but it felt more honest somehow. Noah came up behind her. What are you thinking about? About how a year ago I was standing in my corner office trying to figure out how to prove Marcus Reynolds wrong, how to fix my broken reputation and show everyone I wasn't the cold, unlovable person they thought I was. And I was asking the wrong questions. I was trying to prove something to people whose opinions didn't matter. I was so focused on the narrative, I forgot to actually live. What would you tell yourself if you could go back? Noah asked. Adrienne thought about it. I tell myself that being loved isn't about being perfect or impressive or successful. It's about being honest and vulnerable and brave enough to need people. I tell myself that the best investments aren't always the ones with guaranteed returns. Sometimes you have to risk everything on something impossible and trust that it'll work out. Did it work out? She turned to face him. It worked out better than I could have imagined. You and Maya, you gave me something I didn't know how to want. You taught me that power and success are hollow, without people to share them with. You made me believe I deserved happiness, not just achievement. Noah pulled her close. You always deserved happiness. You just needed to stop punishing yourself long enough to accept it. I'm accepting it now, every messy, chaotic, beautiful part of it. They stood there in the quiet apartment holding each other while their daughter slept down the hall. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Deals were made and broken. Fortunes rose and fell. People fought and loved and struggled and dreamed. But in that moment, in that small apartment in Queens, Adrienne Vale, once Manhattan's most feared CEO, now a wife and mother and partner in every sense of the word, finally understood what success actually meant. It wasn't corner offices or board approvals or quarterly earnings. It was coming home to people who loved you for who you were, not what you'd accomplished. It was having a daughter who called you mom because you'd shown up consistently, not because biology dictated it. It was building a life with someone who saw your worst qualities and loved you anyway. It was choosing connection over control, vulnerability over victory, love over fear. The contract that started it all was long forgotten now, buried in some filing cabinet or digital archive. But what it had created, this family, this life, this impossible love, that was real in a way contracts could never be. Adrienne had spent years trying to prove she didn't need anyone. And then Noah and Maya had shown her that needing people wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing she'd ever done. 6 months had been the original agreement. But standing there with Noah, knowing Maya was sleeping peacefully in the next room, knowing they'd built something that would last far beyond any contract terms, Adrienne realized she'd gotten the timeline wrong from the start. This wasn't a 6-month arrangement. This was forever. And for the first time in her carefully calculated, meticulously controlled life, Adrienne Vale was perfectly okay with not knowing exactly how that story would end. Because she'd finally learned that the best stories, the real ones, the ones worth telling, weren't written in contracts or boardrooms or strategic plans. They were written in small moments, in pancake breakfasts and school projects, in honest conversations and brave choices, in the decision to keep showing up, keep trying, keep loving even when it was terrifying. Adrienne had married Noah Bennett to prove a point, but she'd fallen in love with him because he'd taught her something more valuable than any business lesson. That love wasn't a transaction to be managed, it was a choice to be made every single day. And she chose it, she chose him, she chose them, she chose this forever.